I'm next Thursday getting ready for a big night of college football. That feels pretty good. That feels pretty good on a Thursday morning towards the end of August. Hope you're feeling pretty good as well. Tim Hill, Bill Dutcher, Jen Jensen with you. Bill, how are you feeling, sir?
I'll turn up my mic so I can tell you that it'll make it a lot easier to communicate this morning. I'm feeling pretty good. A little disappointed. Little disappointed, though. Little disappointed.
Well, you're not. Wait. You're not going to play that Gamecock Larry trick on me, are you?
No, because
hurting yesterday, and obviously I just took the bait right away.
Yeah, no, I was gonna tell you. I was gonna tell you. Normally, I was kind of excited about what is at least our. I realize it's college football and it's Nebraska and Illinois and it's UCLA and Hawaii and I guess Fresno State and UConn, and it's not, it's an appetizer at best. But I was kind of looking forward to little Thursday night football. The NFL's got me going with some Thursday night preseason games, and I was kind of excited about that. I was kind of thinking, hey, all right, a little preseason action tonight, golf tournament tomorrow if I'm healthy enough to play, and no preseason game tonight. A little bummed out. It's been tough, man. The last two nights on television. What have you? I mean, of course, you're chasing around 3 kids, but. Yeah, mine are old enough. I bought my son Madden 22 yesterday, so I think he's still in the house. We saw him for dinner, I believe, for a moment. He was giving me an update on rebuilding the Patriots, and then I didn't see him again until 8:30 at bedtime. So, but the television watching last night was with Jaws. I was back into Jaws at 8 o'clock.
Wow, classic. It's a classic for sure. Looks like Trey was into baseball, or at least has heard about the 16-inning epic battle between the Padres and Dodgers last night. Also, the Baltimore Orioles snap a 19-game losing streak. So notable. But Bill, I think for us this time of year, it's really hard to get our attention from a Major League Baseball standpoint. Would you agree? You're with me on that with college football about to kick off with all the NFL storylines. This time yesterday, you wanted to bring up specifically, what did the Jaguars do with Trevor Lawrence, right? It was talked about in that Monday night broadcast with the Jag Saints. And then later, not too long after our show was over yesterday, Urban Meyer announces Trevor Lawrence as the starting quarterback. What'd you make of that? And you're with me on the baseball storyline.
Yeah, at this point, I actually think Major League Baseball did a good job with, what was it, the last 2 weeks, really. I think last week was like the Little League game, and it had, was it the Angels and the Angels, and with the Indians there in Williamsport. That was kind of neat. That was kind of worth watching. I watched a few innings of that. The Braves Yankees over the weekend, kind of the beginning of the week, I guess, was entertaining. And when I could, now I've got the YouTube television, so I don't get the Bally Sports Network there, which is a bit of a setback. A bit of a setback there when you try to watch the Braves, but also the Field of Dreams game, which I don't think you and I were doing the show. I think I was doing Heath's show.
Right.
And the Field of Dreams game was pretty interesting. I kind of enjoyed that. But you're exactly right. Right now, baseball now moves to the back burner until October when the playoffs start. Not paying attention there. Keeping up a little bit more with just breaking news out of college football, anything that's happening, any kind of quarterback battles, or if there's significant injuries or anything like that that's kind of happening in college football. And so that's kind of where I moved to. And obviously yesterday, Clayton White and Marcus Satterfield talking kept far more attention to that and what they had to say. LSU and Southern Cal agree to a game one day after the Super Friends Alliance basically says that they're going to do some new scheduling quirks for the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC. The news yesterday that that LSU and Southern Cal will meet at Alliance Stadium to open the season in Las Vegas in 2024. So that's kind of the stuff that I'm more into at this point in time. And yeah, last night was a little difficult. What was the movie on before Jaws that I was heavily invested in? Let's see, I was flipping back. Oh, The Rock. Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage.
Classic. Yeah. DC says he watched the 1988 Carolina versus Georgia game.
Okay.
The 88 one? I'm trying to figure out what the heck that one was. Is Eric Zier playing quarterback in that thing?
I feel like Eric Zier, I think, was at Lexington High School at that time.
Who would have been playing quarterback? I know that was there in the Todd Ellis age for the Gamecocks.
Was that the TBS game, the weird TBS game that got aired?
Yep, like the one random one that had to start at 5 after, I'm sure, back in those days. So you mentioned in there, your struggle to find quality entertainment yesterday, that we're paying attention to Marcus Satterfield and Clayton White, the two coordinators. That is now the trend, just a weekly press conference. And another great example of it doesn't have to be so hard, right? No earth-shattering news yesterday. Nothing massive coming out of that, but Gamecock fans got to hear from their respective coordinators. And I think maybe the biggest headline I take out of it was a relatively minor development in Gamecock football overall, and that Alex Huntley has impressed Clayton White, the former Hammond standout. Looks like he might have figured out a way to work into the rotation up front. A couple other guys, Mo Kaba and was Debo Williams, I believe, the other two that were mentioned by Clayton White as guys that have had good preseason camps and the whole thing. That's simple enough, right? I mean, this is not giving away state secrets. This is not in any way, shape, or form harming the program. All it did was maybe crack the door open just slightly, a little bit more, to show some personality, to show some thought process and perspective from coordinators yesterday. I go on that mini rant just simply because we haven't gotten to hear from coordinators very much around South Carolina football lately, and fortunately that is not the Shane Beamer policy, though.
No, and it's good. It's good to hear what they believe, what they're seeing in their defense. It is a little bit different when you had Will Muschamp, I guess, who, I don't know, that was probably one of the weirder things. How much was he calling the defense? Was it Travaris Robinson calling the defense? That was the old Steve Spurrier. Was he calling the offense that game? Was he letting Steve Spurrier Jr. or somebody else call it? But Will Muschamp doing both the offensive and defensive press conferences, or making the starting quarterback do the offensive press conference, was always difficult to just understand what the game plan was. You know, it kind of in a way felt bad usually for Jake Bentley that he had to go out there and answer all the questions that Kurt Roper or Brian McClendon had basically put him through. And so nothing earth-shattering yesterday, but you're right. Marcus Satterfield talking, Clayton White talking, maybe a little bit more interesting with Clayton White, just kind of as he got into some of the defensive players who was performing a little bit better, and how he felt about Tyrese Ross already being one of the top 3 safeties, despite having been out really for much of the fall camp, but being back in the last week and a half, I believe. And then also talking about Debo Williams and Mo Kaba as linebackers that had stood out, and Boogie Huntley as a defensive lineman that has made some big strides.
And just even the process, right? The operation, how it's going to work. Let you hear from Clayton White as we roll on, and a little bit of Marcus Satterfield. The mechanics of calling the defense. He says there'll be a headset on the sideline. There'll be some guys in the press box. Those guys will tell him what personnel is in the game for the opposing offense. He'll call the play. It'll get signaled in. They'll do it for 3 hours on a Saturday, and he loves it. I mean, just that to me was something refreshing to see. A guy talking about how he loves calling defense. I mean, you could just tell as he is talking about it that the competitive juices were flowing, and he's looking forward to that for sure. No big surprise from the quarterback perspective. You know, that has been the conversation now for, I guess we're going on a week plus, maybe close to 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks ago, I guess, tomorrow when Luke Doty first injured his foot, the midfoot sprain, leaving him officially questionable for game number 1 against Eastern Illinois. Marcus Satterfield going into that a little bit yesterday, but didn't say anything that we hadn't heard from Shane Beamer, in my opinion. You take anything away from reading between the lines or kind of reading the tea leaves, Bill, from what Marcus Satterfield had to say about his quarterback situation yesterday?
No, well, a little bit, but it's all conspiracy theory conjecture. Like I think Shane Beamer wants Luke Doty to be the starting quarterback. That's just what I kind of take that. I'd have to go back to the exact sentence or phrase I believe that Satterfield used in trying to describe that, but or just kind of breaking down what's going on. But I really believe that right now Marcus Satterfield is in a different camp than Shane Beamer. I think Beamer's like, all right, let's get our starter back and let's just go with him and get him reps. And again, I think all this is your preference as to should Luke Doty take snaps. I think Tim, you're on the Shane Beamer camp. In my opinion, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're of the opinion, get Luke Doty out there, let him get some positive snaps, let some things happen that makes him feel good about himself. Let your basically your starting offense get out there and do some things that they can look at on film and say, hey, this went really well. You did good here. Let's correct this and get ready for East Carolina. I think Marcus Satterfield is the mindset of like, let me get one of the other guys going. Let's just get out there and get everybody else ready, and I'll have Luke ready in week 2, which is, I think, where Patrick and I are at. I think Patrick and I are of the mindset, like, hold Luke out 1 week, have him ready for East Carolina. Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're the mindset, nope, get him out there as long as he's healthy. Injuries can occur anytime during a football game. That's just the way the game is played. You can't worry about him being injured in one game to save 11 more. He's got to play. And the best thing for him would be to get him out there and let him get a little bit of confidence in his game.
Yeah, I feel like it's a massive if, though. To me, it's all about the health there. 100%, you can go with him and go from there. Patrick, where were you in that gas baggy hot take? Are you in an alliance with Bill?
Yes.
Where you are?
I think we're aligned. I mean, I said yesterday the ideal situation is that Luke Doty is at least healthy enough to play and wears pads and warms up and does all that fun stuff, but they just hold him out for the sake of not rushing it or just giving him another week. At this point, I don't care who starts week 1. Like, I've long and continue to think that it's not a great look for an SEC program to throw out a guy that was a coach 2 weeks ago. But as far as Luke Doty, I think I'm with Bill. I think we're aligned. We have a stronger alliance than the Big Ten, Pac-12.
That's how the alliance works. We think we're aligned.
Look,
we don't have a contract stating. We didn't sign a contract stating our beliefs. We have.
Tomorrow I'm going to probably switch sides and schedule an alliance with Tim. So
we have a gentleman's agreement that this is where we stand today.
Could that have looked any more ridiculous? Would we be saying something different if we weren't in an SEC town and hadn't seen Carolina join almost 30 years ago now in the SEC and seeing all the benefits that has come with that for South Carolina, the athletic department, the facilities, and the whole thing? I'm trying.
We'd still be laughing at them because there were unbiased sources that were like one day after the Pac-12, Big Ten, and ACC aligned and said that they won't be scheduling SEC opponents. Maybe the premier school of that, well, I guess not Ohio State, but the premier school of the Pac-12 has scheduled an SEC opponent.
But that's the thing. They didn't come out and say that, right? They said that they'll look at the football scheduling at some point. That's somewhere down the line. And they didn't sign a contract. And they basically did nothing. I mean, they
had a press conference, Tim.
What's that?
They all got on the Zoom call at the same time.
That's a good point.
Nobody's mic was muted. It's pretty solid.
That prestige worldwide comparison yesterday from Step Brothers, it just keeps getting better and better, I feel like, after yesterday's news. I mean, just from a PR standpoint, guys, do we not understand how this comes off? Look,
well, I compared it.
You're relatively new. Go ahead, Bill.
I compared it because, and I put this on Twitter, and then I mentioned it on Heath Show on Tuesday night, to many instances in college where I had actually either studied or prepared for a presentation for a class, and you get there for the test or you get there to give your presentation, and within 5 minutes you're going, uh-oh, I'm not prepared for this. I don't know what I'm supposed to say or what the answers are, and you start looking around for help. I mean, that's what it was. It was like, hey, guys, let's hold a press conference. Let's tell everybody we got an alliance. And within 5 minutes, it was like, uh-oh, we really don't have anything here. They're asking tough questions. Do we have a contract? No contract. Are we all together on expansion of playoff? Well, 2 of the 3 are for expansion. The other one wasn't sure where his conference sits. What are you going to do on schedule?
You know what it was? It was probably all the schools that no one wanted to schedule anyway. it was probably like Oregon State and the Arizonas and Colorado, and they're like, yeah, let's not schedule any SEC opponents. And then Southern Cal's like, oh, LSU, Las Vegas, all right, that's fine, we'll do it. Like Ohio State's still going to schedule Georgia or whoever they want to schedule. It's all the Iowa States of the world and the teams that no one cares about scheduling them anyway. They have the majority vote, but it doesn't matter. Clemson's still going to play SEC teams.
Yeah, I was going to say, does Iowa State care about scheduling other teams like that? Do they feel like Iowa State has?
Who are they going to schedule? Arkansas?
I mean, they already play Iowa. I mean, look, South Carolina the next 2 years, aside from Clemson. Well, I guess I say this year, next year, 2023, they play North Carolina. But the bottom line is, look at South Carolina's non-conference schedule this year: Eastern Illinois, Troy, East Carolina. Next year, it's Georgia State, Charlotte, and Wofford. Like, sometimes that's just what a program does. Baylor, I think, Tim, under Art Briles, when they were really starting to play well, played 3 teams from Texas that usually you'd never heard of. Like, they would just go find random teams that you'd never heard of. Baylor didn't play big non-conference games. There are teams that need to do that. And look, you've already got Michigan and Washington playing this year. You've already got Oregon and Ohio State playing. I'm not sure, where exactly this scheduling alliance would ever lead, because you've already got some of these games taking place.
Also seen, it was Brett McMurphy put this out yesterday, and it was relatively early yesterday, about how I think one of these name, image, and likeness companies is who Alston is. If I get this correct, out a note or sent a letter to the ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12 warning the alliance that it would be illegal to collaborate on future athlete compensation. I mean, just what an absolute mess. You can't make this stuff up. College sports, it's quite the soap opera, always, but especially these days, and especially since Oklahoma and Texas and the SEC became a real thing a couple of weeks ago. It has gotten us through the summer in a big way. But now, 1 week away from college football really kicking off in earnest, I feel like next Thursday night. Going to happen, though, this weekend in pieces. And Clayton White's mentioning it yesterday, the defensive coordinator for the Gamecocks, what an advantage it will be to be able to check out some tape of the Carolina season opening opponent when they play Indiana State this weekend. And that line's still 13.5. Bill, I know you're all over the early line for Eastern Illinois and Indiana State for Saturday night.
Got only any Indiana State. They got some big things coming back.
Yeah, we'll break that down for you as we continue to roll on.
What's their mascot? Oh, okay, good. That was outstanding timing.
Sycamores.
Come on. I mean, she's from Illinois. Really, you didn't know the Sycamores? The only reason I had any.
Larry Bird.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey,
I knew Larry Bird went there. That's the only thing. They're blue and white, right?
I've been Miss Jensen and I've been exchanging text messages. I've been getting all the lowdown on what exactly is going on with Indiana State football.
Wait a second. What's the Eastern Illinois mascot? You know that?
Panther.
Can we confirm that, Jen? Or even from an Illinois native? No clue. I saw that facial expression.
It's truly the Panther. After I said a couple weeks ago, one of those little Twitter videos I did where I said we don't know their mascot, I had to look it up. It's Panther, Eastern Illinois Panthers.
Okay, fair enough. All Clemson fans are up feeling their oats this morning. Maybe they're really emboldened, strengthened by an alliance.
Yeah,
Spirit of the alliance this morning.
Yeah, they're aligned with Ohio State and Michigan and Michigan
See
State.
Clemson Allen, Jim, and Carolina Beach as well on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. 803-404-6100 is the number if you'd like to call or text the show. Love to hear from you. We're up and rolling on the YouTube, Facebook Live, on Twitter as well with a live video stream at 1075 The Game. Just search for the station handle there on Twitter. You can find us very simply. Glad you're with us on a Thursday morning as college football season is just that much closer. It's the early game here on 1075 The Game.
I just Googled Eastern Illinois football and was just looking at their uniforms. This is a brutal side-by-side of Tony Romo in college and Jimmy Garoppolo in college.
It's a brutal side-by-side.
Tan and chiseled and looks like a stud, and Romo looks like he's never thrown a football before in his life.
I think
Romo looks like a child that just picked up a football and is trying to figure out how to fit it in his hand.
Why don't you Photoshop that thing? Photoshop Tony Romo up a little bit. I think he's doing all right.
Doing all right now. Was he drafted? I don't even know.
Romo or
Good question. I think he was. I don't remember undrafted ever being attached to him. So I'm guessing like
No.
6th round. No?
2003, undrafted free agent.
Wow. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, Garoppolo was definitely drafted. I think he was a second rounder.
And then how is current quarterback supposed to be? I'm guessing nowhere close.
Say, Otto Coons, is that actually his name? That might be it.
Otto, like OTTO?
Yeah.
Nice. That is a great football name.
3 weeks ago, Fox, Illinois says the QB battle's ramping up competition.
Morning, Anthony. Morning, Josh. Travis, I don't think you have to worry about the strength of the alliance. Really,
They have a 5-person quarterback battle.
Wow.
Eastern Illinois does?
Yeah. Second-year freshman Otto Coons came into camp with a slight edge. They
Interesting.
have a Duke transfer named Chris Katrenik. A Colorado transfer, Grant Cicerone. And a couple freshmen named Zach.
So what we're gathering, yeah, I guess you have to say, I was trying to think that those guys are probably rated higher than Jason Brown, and then I was going to say Zeb Nolan, but not Nolan going to Iowa State. Maybe.
I mean, Duke and Colorado are probably more prestigious than Iowa State. Not anymore because of Matt Campbell, but
maybe 3 years ago.
well, I think it's safe to say if you have 5 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks.
I think you're right.
Gotta have somebody distance themselves. Who's Tennessee open the season with?
Good question.
Bill should not know that off the top of your head.
I do.
Who is it? Yeah, Bowling Green. Boiling Green.
Oh, Boiling Green.
A week from tonight.
What are they going to announce a starter?
I'm currently reading the Eastern Illinois Indiana State cliff notes or game notes.
Nice.
Fascinating.
School us up.
Who's calling it?
Let me go to the actual. Let's go to the whole game notes. I just got the notes to know. I was reading them, but I've got the whole. Look at the whole breakdown.
Are Tony Romo and Jimmy Garoppolo both from Illinois?
Can you name the coach for either Indiana State or Eastern Illinois?
Of course not. Actually, yeah, I have it right here. It's Adam Cushing.
Do you have his overall record going into year 3?
Absolutely not.
2-16.
Where'd he come from?
The answer to the question of who is on the play-by-play is going to be Brian Jennings for ESPN Plus, with the analyst is Cottrell Moss.
All right.
So they lost the rock, paper, scissors?
That's pretty much it. Eastern Illinois scored 13 offensive touchdowns during its shortened spring 2021 season. Of those 13 scores, 3 were of the big play variety, with 2 long touchdown runs and 1 pass. Think about that. If you want to listen in, you can listen on the Panther Radio Network, which is.
Morning, Chris.
There's a link. Mike Brad will be the announcer on the radio network with Jason Fisher and Rich Moser, the analyst. 2 analysts.
Movar, morning. Jen, we'll probably get all of those, what you've cut here in this segment. Let's start off the top with number 3, please.
Straight in.
Yes, ma'am. So talking Satterfield and running backs here this segment, gentlemen.
Patrick, did you mention that Otto Coons has been named the starter, has been listed as the starter?
Oh no, I just saw there's a battle. I was just looking at news.
He has been
News
listed
articles.
as the starter.
Otto Coons.
Oh, dynamic wide receiver Isaiah Hill is expected to return to the Panther lineup after missing last year.
On the sideline and other guys on the field that may not be as productive as those guys, just because we think there's only one back that's supposed to be out there. We need to make sure that we format our offense to where those guys, right, as long as it's allowing us success, can be on the field, they're on the field and not standing over there on the sideline.
Gamecock offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield, yesterday's press conference talking about running backs and how they're going to fit in to his offense in this fall. Let you hear some specific running backs or his thoughts on specific running backs in a minute. First, Bill, wanted to get your take on that comment. Like, to me, that is a great theoretical comment. I get it. It makes a lot of sense. You always want to have your best 11 out there. The question will be, how do you do that? And especially with a team on paper right now that seems running back and tight end heavy. It seems like it's going to be quite the challenge unless we're going to get just one of the most creative college football offenses that we've ever seen, which, again, we don't know what we're going to see because of Marcus Satterfield's relative inexperience and certainly his lack of being an SEC offensive coordinator or at a Power 5 level. What do you think about what you heard?
Well, I think we kind of talked a little bit about this yesterday, just with maybe having McDowell, if he's in the game, start behind in the backfield and then motion out to a wide receiver position. Marshawn Lloyd could do something like that as well, where maybe you try and get them matched up on a linebacker for like a little quick hitter or something. You got 2 of them back there and one of them motions back or motions out. Obviously being able to utilize some misdirection with a fake to one and a handoff to other. So I think there's different ways. I feel like it's not as complex as you kind of just made it out to be. I feel like you can do small things, getting 2 of those guys on the field if they're better. Now, look, if some receivers can step up, maybe there's not a need to do some of the stuff that we're discussing. I think that's kind of the interesting part. I think in a perfect world, Josh Vann and DeCarron Joyner and Jalen Brooks and maybe another guy or 2, or Trey Smith is the guy I mentioned yesterday, step up and you don't have to utilize these guys by flexing them out or putting them in motion and trying to take advantage of it. But I do also think that there are times that, you try and take advantage of some guys who maybe are a little bit more of a big play threat or home run threat. We saw Kevin Harris be able to run away from defenders last year. That was probably the most impressive thing he did, was he actually did run away from guys at times when he was able to get through the line. So he's got the speed to do it. We assume Marshawn Lloyd can do it, although we haven't seen him do it in a college game. And, Juju McDowell's a guy that a lot of people are talking about. So with all that being said, I think that, you put him back there and you have to be maybe a little bit more creative and a little bit more I say creative, but at the same time, I don't think it's that difficult to put them back there and then flex one out and just run a quick slant, just trying to get the ball in their hands.
But they have to be better at doing that than your wide receivers, or else it's just a waste to even put them out there. Like, if you want to have them all in the field, I'm sure, because they're dynamic with the ball in their hands, but like, is Juju McDowell getting the same separation as Josh Vann on a quick slant? If not, then don't even bother. Like, that's what RL just asked. How did UGA manage their running backs when the room was stacked? I mean, Alabama's had three draft picks in their running back room for the last 10 years. And basically one guy always ends up being the workhorse by the end of the year. When it's all said and done, one guy has got the lion's share of the carries, and maybe you have a change of pace back. Like, I don't know. You want to be creative, but I just don't know how plausible it is to actually work in multiple guys in the field at the same time. You said home run threat, but Juju McDowell maybe is a home run threat with the ball in his hands, but is he able to beat a cornerback over the top and get open deep down the field? Because that's the kind of home runs you're also going to have to hit. Like, can he be a deep play
Well, I don't-
threat
but
better than
there's-
Amarion Brown can? Who
Well,
knows?
no. That I think you're taking it a little bit too far on that. Right now, what you're trying to do is find guys that you can just get them the ball in space. They can make a guy or two miss, and maybe they can go the
Sure.
distance. Or
But how many guys can you have on the field like that at once? Like, somebody has to be out there running a route, because as like what we know from DeCarrion Joyner is he's more of a get him the ball with space to work with, right?
Well, I don't think you send those guys in motion to run intricate routes and to put on the full route. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a designed play to utilize that guy again, get him matched up on a linebacker where he's just getting a little, maybe he's running kind of a little out breaking route to the sideline, and you've got some blockers downfield in front of him, and he's got to make one guy miss. I'm trying to think which.
But that's what I mean. Like, don't you think Juju McDowell will be serving almost the same role as DeCarrion Joyner in that sense? Like, that's what you're going to be trying to do with each of them.
Depends. I mean, again, like you said, who's a little bit more slippery, who's a little bit faster. I don't know if I've bought into DeCarrion Joyner being. I know he had the long reverse against Vanderbilt, I believe, last year, but I've never bought into DeCarrion Joyner being the home run threat. I go back Shi Smith, Debo Samuel, because we saw those guys on slant patterns catch it and take off 75.
Well, and we saw Shi Smith getting separation down the field and catching bombs from Jake Bentley with no one on him, because he's able to, like, whatever he's doing at the top of his routes to get away from the corners, like, that's what he's doing. You don't necessarily see running backs getting open over the top like that.
I guess well, you want to go with maybe the wheel routes or things like that, but I guess my expectation for DeCarrion Joyner is to be more of a possession receiver, a guy who can get open, can make some pick up some yards after the catch. But I don't know if he's a guy that you're going to see on the deep post or just the straight go routes. I think there's your Amarion Brown. Jalen Brooks does have. I saw him get open last year deep. He does have some speed to get open. I think those are the first two guys I'm looking at to do that. I think Joyner's more of a possession guy. But again, just getting the ball out of Luke Doty's hands or whomever the quarterback is and out into the flat and having a guy that can maybe make a guy miss. I mean, I'm trying to think back, and I think somebody just said it somewhere. But, yeah, Craig says it, Kadarius Toney. Just a guy, just get the ball out on the perimeter.
That's how I look at Joyner, because it's a converted quarterback as well. With a non-advanced route tree.
Want to let you guys hear a little bit more from Marcus Satterfield. He just told us that if the running backs are on the sideline, that's not a good thing, especially if they have evaluated that they're the guys who are going to make plays. But it's an interesting dichotomy between what he also had to say when he was asked about kind of the philosophy of getting guys carries in the backfield.
I don't want to have a running back by committee when I've got a really good running back that can be 150, 175-yard rusher, and he rushes for 75 because we're going by committee, and he gets 3 possessions in the first half. So compete and get out there.
He almost had a smile at the end there. You could tell he said that one a few times. I like what I just heard there, and he said it specifically. He said a little bit early on in his comments, I don't want to go with a guy who has the hot hand. I feel like we heard that a ton the last several years. To me, this is, more the Steve Spurrier philosophy of, you got to get a guy in a rhythm. And the guy mostly was Marcus Lattimore or Mike Davis in the Steve Spurrier era. But you get a guy in the rhythm of the game, and a guy who you give him the opportunity to get stronger and stronger, as opposed to you make one play, then you got to go to the sideline, and then another guy comes in and he makes a play, and then you don't really know who you want to give the ball to. I guess in a theoretical world, if you could give it to one of 4 guys and they could all make a really good play, that would be ideal. But I think in reality, Marcus Satterfield's philosophy tends to work more than the other one, in that, you got a guy going, you got a good running back, you give him the ball. Now, that's different than saying you run him into the ground, and in a 12-game SEC schedule that you don't understand the physical demands of the position. I think this is just more of a philosophy, a play-calling philosophy of you got to have your best guy in there most of the time to give yourself the best chance to win. That's what I heard there. Bill, what about you?
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. And now the question will be, kind of how do you determine that? Is that necessarily just going to be Kevin Harris because he's been the workload? He was the workload back last year, and you just naturally assume he'll be that guy again? Is it Marshawn Lloyd because of of what he is expected to be and maybe what they've seen. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I think that is the model that I prefer to watch as opposed to seeing guys rotate in and out. And then at the end of the night, you see three guys with, between 8 and 11 carries, and maybe they've all had a lot of success. I think you get the one guy who kind of gets greased up and gassed up and has 20, 25 carries. And I don't think anybody listening thinks that this is going to be a passing team that wins with Luke Doty throwing the ball all over the field this year. What Marcus Satterfield is saying to me is interesting when you talk about playing a Kentucky or a Tennessee or an Auburn or Missouri, those big swing games that South Carolina has to win to have a chance to get to a bowl game. How do you utilize your offense in those games, I think, is the fascinating part. It's not going to be against Eastern Illinois or even Troy. How do you utilize it in those games that potentially gives you a chance to win those and be a little bit better than expected?
Marcus Satterfield also weighing in on Kevin Harris, the 1,000-plus yard back last year for the Gamecocks, who has yet to be 100% on the practice field so far this year after an offseason back injury.
How'd Kevin Harris look today?
Looked good. Got some individual time with him, some backfield, some run timing with the quarterbacks. And I didn't even realize that he was in there. And we ran a rep. I was like, I had to double take and see him. So he looks good, and he's got a big old smile on his face. And you can tell that he's ready to roll. He's just waiting for somebody to, cut the chain loose and go.
Meant to say off-season back procedure there with Kevin Harris. Again, Bill, this is where I feel like there is the advantage of hearing from multiple coaches and a coordinator, not just a head coach, and that you hear kind of a corroborated story or a slightly different perspective than Shane Beamer's. I think that always fed into our eventual suspicious listening to Will Muschamp talk about injuries and the whole thing. That and the fact that sometimes the very rare instances we'd hear from assistant coaches, they would term injuries a little bit different than we'd hear it from the head coach.
Who was it? Was it Lance Thompson?
Yeah,
who
it
accidentally
was exactly
said so?
Lance Thompson.
Never heard from Lance again.
He's out for the season. Will Muschamp the next day. Day to day. Good day to day. Just never know. And then, Lance Thompson was not employed too much longer, I don't think, after that. But my point being there is I think what you hear from Marcus Satterfield, encouraging from the Gamecock fan perspective, and it seems like he's just on the precipice of being turned loose and ready to go in that Gamecock backfield. On the other end of the spectrum, Kevin Harris is a proven commodity, like you guys mentioned. The other end of the spectrum is a true freshman in Juju McDowell, who's been kind of the talk of preseason camp. And, man, Marcus Satterfield, great things to say about Juju McDowell.
He's a very special kid, a lot like Jaheim. He's a South Georgia kid. Football is important to him. He's has a high football IQ. You can tell him, hey, do A, B, and C, and he can do it. He can replicate it without ever repping it one time. And he's special. And as long as he stays focused and continues to work like he's doing, I think he's got a chance to have a really good season this season, whether he's a freshman or not.
Again, Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator for the Gamecocks, talking about true freshman running back Juju McDowell, who Craig says hopefully will be our version of Kadarius Toney. To me, I don't know who I would compare Juju McDowell to from a Gamecock.
No, we hadn't seen him enough. I mean,
no, I'm just saying from a size standpoint. I think he's listed at 5'7", 5'8", 180. Has there been a Gamecock back at that size in any kind of recent history, Bill, that's had a bunch of success? I don't remember one. I think Ace Sanders is probably the guy in the Gamecock offense who has been a smaller guy who had the greatest impact here in the last decade or so. What pops to your mind? Anything?
Well, I never thought he got enough touches. This was a complaint of the Muschamp era and kind of what we're talking about. I always liked A.J. Turner. I thought A.J. Turner was productive when he got opportunities and was in that kind of mold. And I remember arguing that I thought he might be, the number one back at times and because of his speed and his ability to make a play. I mean, I still remember I think Muschamp's first year, they gave it to A.J. Turner on the first play, and I think he went 75 yards.
Against Texas A&M.
Yeah. I mean, I just never thought they gave A.J. Turner the opportunities that maybe he deserved at run back. Then they ended up moving him to defensive back, which I thought was ridiculous. And so, that was what it was. But you're right. Off the top of my head, I don't remember anybody like that recently coming through the program. Bobby Wallace was another one for, I guess, Spurrier that was that size. And of course, he got beat out kind of early on.
Logan hits us up on the YouTube live stream, says, what about Bruce? Bruce Ellington, I guess relatively similar size. Ellington was a really thick guy. I'm guessing was much closer to 200 pounds than the 180 and about 6 feet tall, or 5'11" at least, and didn't play running back, which is why he didn't pop in my head, and not quite as short as Ace Sanders. But the way that all these coaches and players have talked about Juju McDowell, it's hard for me to imagine, Patrick, that he doesn't make an early impact in that when you're a running back, a lot of times it's such a natural position. You don't have to know the playbook as intricately or be a part of the program as long as a lot of these other positions. You just go with your natural instincts. It seems like that's what McDowell has done so far in camp, and he's set to do it again, or for the first time, I should say, in front of everybody on Saturday, September 4th.
Yeah, it's just we've seen some ridiculous running back rooms in college football. I mean, Georgia was mentioned. They had Todd Gurley, Sony Michel, and Nick Chubb in the same running back room. That's, 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick maybe, and Nick Chubb probably would have been a first-round pick too if he didn't get hurt. Alabama has that famous picture of Derrick Henry, TJ Yeldon, Kenyon Drake, and I think Alvin Kamara in the same running back room. And every time there's always a workhorse. Like, everybody gets touches, and that's just what I think it's going to be. If Kevin Harris is healthy, Kevin Harris is going to be the workhorse. Marshawn Lloyd's going to get a ton of touches as a change of pace guy. And then Juju McDowell, I mean, there will be opportunities for him to play. He's going to play a lot against Eastern Illinois. That thing should be a blowout, and there will be opportunities. But it's not like you can't just give each of these guys 20 touches a game. It's just there's only one ball. You're not going to be on the field enough for that.
There's not, and I know that they've bragged on Juju McDowell, but they've also talked a lot about Zaquandre White and the way he had the spring game. I mean, it's interesting to see how they'll utilize.
Somebody's going to get left out that is a really talented running back, and it's a good problem to have.
To your point about Alabama, those guys know that their time is coming. Right?
Yeah.
Kevin Harris is eligible to go to the NFL after this year. I don't know if he will. I don't know if he'll have the year. I don't know where he would even be projected. Running backs are kind of a dime a dozen in the NFL.
Which is almost why you just get out. You can make a roster, you can make some money, and just
right. And
especially if he's.
I think as a fan, you got to think about that almost counterintuitively, right? And typically, you want to keep good players as long as possible. But if Kevin Harris is going to the NFL after this season, that means he's had a good season, and that's what you want as a Gamecock fan for sure. We'll continue to discuss and let you hear more from Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator for the Gamecocks, and defensive coordinator Clayton White, who both spoke yesterday. It's going to be a weekly deal for Gamecock football moving forward. We see you guys that have made the comment about Sean Carson. That's a pretty good comparison, I think, to Juju McDowell. Maybe not quite as electric as McDowell has made an immediate impact, but from a smaller running back perspective in the recent time for Gamecock football for sure. 803-404-6100. If you'd like to weigh in on the program, it's the early game. It's 107.5 The Game.
Hey, we've got to wait with that Zoom call for work. You know, when the mute button is on and they can't hear you, you could be listening to 107.5 The Game and
Oh, that sunrise is looking good over there.
All right, little children. Get ready for another day. Another exciting day of school. Pictures.
The Orioles lose last night? They did, right?
No, they broke the streak.
Oh, really?
19. They beat Shohei. 19 losses in a row. What's that?
So I thought they were down too. I think they might have had a leadoff home run on Shohei. I saw some people at that game just for the sake of going to watch Ohtani. Man, 10 runs. Do you know what the Diamondbacks streak got up to early this year? Weren't they on a massive losing streak?
They were. I think it got to like 12 or something.
Oh.
Christian Walker, 1-for-1 with 3 walks last night. Let's let Google help us out here. Diamondbacks losing streak. 2021. 24 games. Road losing streak. That was the difference there.
Have you seen what the Orioles' 26-man payroll is?
No, but let me guess. Orioles 26 person.
It's the lowest in the league.
Right. So I'm gonna guess. That's so relative.
Oh, it's actually basically tied as lowest in the league.
Okay.
The highest is the Phillies at $162 million.
162 and 26. So they're averaging like 8 million per person, maybe like 7 point something. I'm guessing they're averaging like 2 max. So less than 2. I'll go 35 million.
18 and a half.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
almost impossible.
Yeah, it's actually outrageous. I think a lot of general managers are upset because baseball people are big. Baseball is not really a tank sport. They're all purists out there, and they want to win games. But the Orioles are just blatantly being as bad as physically possible. They have the number 1 farm system in the baseball. They're going to suck for probably 2 to 3 more years, and then mid 2020s they should be a force to be reckoned with again.
Yeah, good call there, Travis. Thurman Thomas to Barry Sanders, pretty good.
Well, I mean,
looks like it's
Alabama
going to be McDowell or DeCarrion Joyner or a combination of the two. Juju McDowell and DeCarrion Joyner. Logan, sorry. Go ahead, Pat.
What was the order for Alabama? I mean, they had 3 guys that if they just changed their numbers, but they all were like just beasts with dreads, and it was Trent Richardson, Eddie Lacy, Derrick Henry. Was that the order?
Yeah, and you got to throw Mark Ingram in there too, I think.
He was before Trent Richardson, right? That was 2009.
Well,
yeah.
Ingram and Richardson were together. Ingram was older because when they came to Columbia.
Well, they were all on the same team at the same time, right?
Right. I think so.
Like, so Ingram and Richardson were on the same team, and then Ingram left, and then Richardson completely took over, and then Eddie Lacy would spell Trent Richardson in that national championship season, and then Lacy took over completely, and then Derrick Henry was spelling Eddie Lacy, and then he took over. I
mean, it's so ridiculous. I mean, was it Damian Harris where did he just take over in New England?
Yep.
Yeah, that's why they traded
Sonny
Sonny
forget
Michel.
about him completely, or like he pales in comparison to a bunch of those guys. And
well, TJ Yeldon was the number 1 back for them, and he wasn't even he's not even the best of the NFL guys at that point from that running back room. Alvin Kamara was on that team.
Great.
Kenyon Drake's a really good pro. Like a really good pro.
Didn't Kenyon Drake get injured though? Am I wrong?
At Alabama?
Yeah,
I don't remember. I just remember him like not getting a ton of touches, but every time he touched the ball, it seemed like he was going 60 yards with it.
Right. And who's the dude with the Raiders?
Josh Jacobs.
So ridiculous.
Yeah, because he got drafted with Damian Harris, I think.
Right.
But Damian Harris was the guy that had been a workhorse for 4 years, and Josh Jacobs was the guy that barely played, but was dynamic every time he touched it. So they were like, we want the guy with as little wear and tear as possible. And then they got Brian Robinson this year. He'll probably be a 2nd-round pick next year, even though no one's really seen him play.
About a minute, Jim. Somewhere in there. Cool Care Heating and Air text line. I want to see us pass the ball the first game, not just pound it. Everybody knows we can run the ball. If these quarterbacks can't move the ball passing, then we need to get on the recruiting trail because there's no point in having a quarterback can't sling it down the field efficiently. No chance of ever getting to the SEC championship without passing we can rely on.
So pass the ball week 1 so we can figure out if we need to recruit a new quarterback?
Right, that's what Richard's saying.
Okay. Braden Davis had a nice little highlight yesterday.
Yesterday? Is that what you said?
I don't know. I saw it on Twitter yesterday. Rolled to his left, dropped a little dime.
Okay.
I think
percentage-wise, percentage passes to runs for Gamecock offense in game number 1. What do you got, Bill?
65-35, 65% run. Look, South Carolina's going to stay very vanilla. If there is a passing game, they're not going to show much of it against Eastern Illinois unless they have to. And if they have to, that's a bigger problem. I think that you'll see a lot of things held for East Carolina.
Patrick, you going 65-35? You agree?
Yeah, I mean 60-40, 70-30, something like that, because it's going to be a blowout late. You don't want to disrespect them and start chucking it around the field either. Just run the football and get that clock running, get everybody out healthy.
That would be an amazing way for Shane Beamer to make a bit of a splash in his first college
Try
game.
and drop 100.
Right? Yeah, my
Well,
coach
no,
with the
you
great
guys-
Steve Spurrier. They got to stop us.
I was going to say, we laugh. We don't know about this coaching staff. Is that Beamer's philosophy if Connor Jordan gets in there? Hey, he's done all the work. He gets to throw the ball too. You got to stop him.
Coaches are over there chest bumping 84-2. No,
All right,
I don't.
we continue to get. It's picture day. It's picture day for the middle schooler. So I don't think I have to fix anybody's hair, but I'll keep you updated.
No French braid for you this morning?
I don't think I'm going to be the one doing that. She's pretty good at fixing her own hair.
There's always retake day.
Is it all? I don't know if we have those down here.
Really? I did that for my senior pictures.
Is it? Hey, is this a Southern thing or is it pretty much just across the country? Ansley has picture day and has her fitness test for PE where she has to run a mile in the same day.
That's not.
Well,
That's just poor planning.
I don't know if that's a Southern thing. I think that's just an unfortunate timing.
Well, there is a break. There is a break to that. Her fitness test is the very last. Her PE class is the last class of the day.
Oh, that's good.
So thankfully she will be well past pictures. But the other stupid part is like they don't give them. I think in middle school we got PE outfits, the cloth shorts and crappy T-shirt.
No uniforms?
No
Yeah,
uniform.
we just had to wear white shirts and black shorts, and they sold them. They had them that they would sell to us.
That's how
But
we did
you
it.
didn't have to wear the school branded stuff.
So, Bill, what was your question? What were you asking might be a Southern thing there?
Is that a Southern thing where you have picture day and run the mile all in the same day?
No, it's just dumb.
Just dumb. Okay.
Never heard of it ever.
It'd be interesting if that was just a geographic thing. Southerners always run a mile on picture day.
Right. I mean,
All right, guys.
Something that would happen in the South. No one has to be like, "Hey, it's 107 degrees out, and you got to take pictures today." So it's the perfect.
Everyone knows those backwards South Carolinians always run the mile before they take a picture.
We'd like to call this the Robert E. Lee special.
Yeah.
He was famous for having his troops line up, take a picture, and then hike miles.
The mile run is nationwide. Picture day is nationwide, but only the Southerners do it on the same day.
Because we're tougher.
and we don't care how bad we look.
I think that's really bad. Like middle schoolers are gonna freak out too.
Hey,
I would have freaked out about that in middle school.
Picture day?
Not running a mile, then go into the auditorium to take a picture. Are you kidding me?
No, but you heard what he said. Picture first, run later.
Oh, picture first. Oh, well, then
Yeah.
that doesn't matter.
So it's not a big deal.
I hated picture day.
Same here.
Yep.
I still don't like having to smile on command.
Agreed. Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
How about
Drove.
be a good enough photographer to take a candid picture and get me smiling?
Right.
How about
There
Exactly.
you go.
How about we don't present false images to the world? How about that?
Wow.
As we sit here on a camera right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not smiling.
It can be a challenge to go through the 3-hour show and find a good screenshot of all four of us.
I can see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Bill's got his best one up right now, presenting his.
Well,
Can we not see
the way
it?
my desk is, I almost need a new desk. I can't really have my camera look at me head on. I can't find a way for my camera to look at me head on. like to look at the camera when I'm looking at my.
Right.
I guess I could just look at the camera, but when it's up here, like above my head, I'd feel weird just staring at the camera and not looking at you guys while you're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I'm looking at you guys and it looks like I'm looking down, but right now I'm looking at the camera and it feels really weird just staring at the camera while I talk.
Right. I've never had a problem with it. What do you mean, Logan? I mean,
Well, you did TV.
Exactly. I wonder if that's where you're going with your pose.
Yeah.
No, the cheesiest ever, of course, local TV. Great Saturday Night Live skit about that, like a photo shoot.
Maybe I'll try and just look at the camera for a whole show and just see how it goes. Is this better for everyone? Is this a better viewing experience for everyone?
No, it's so weird now.
Yeah.
Now you're weirdly staring at me. That's how you should. That's what you should do when you get married. For all the pictures, right into the camera with a weird face.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you guys all do Christmas? Do you guys do Christmas card pictures?
We try to, but I don't think. I think we got about a 50% success rate here in the last few years.
Do you do the like put on all white and go to the beach and take a picture on the beach?
Of course.
We have done that as a family.
The white linen shirts.
Brutal.
Yeah, everybody puts on white.
I remember that growing up. My mom would always have a day picked out kind of in the fall, like this is going to be the Christmas picture. Christmas picture.
Hey, do you want to take that like a Capri Sun or something?
Great point, Clemson Sean. Great point.
Okay, so you're just gonna take a cosmic brownie. Are you gonna put it in your book bag?
So far, I'm hearing high nutrition in the Gunner house.
Don't let it get like smushed.
Send him with a fork. Smush brownie. Get a fork.
Did you get one?
That's a good sign for your daughter, Travis. I think you would be very concerned if she only liked getting her picture taken more.
There is definitely, social media has made it where there's just a lot more photography being done. A lot of like the selfie games are upped, and there's some of it where it's like I see that person's child, like high school child, one more time with one of the the cheesiest smiles ever, and all these poses like every holiday, every time.
Well, it's just so easy now too. You don't need to have a digital camera to break out. The iPhone camera is better than any digital cameras we had in the last however many years.
It's like, oh my gosh, my daughter broke a nail. Look, getting a lot of control.
So, Bill, you're here for the first segment. We'll dip out about 7:10 and we good to go. Is that right?
Yeah, but I can already see. Well, Austin's ready again. Picture day. So Ansley's it's
gonna be late.
Maybe we may just have to switch that 8:10 and 8:40. I can already see.
Yep.
You get your iPad?
Picture day conversation going on, a live video stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You can find us during the breaks as well on the live video stream. Glad you're a part of the program. However, you're taking it in this morning on a Thursday, kind of before college football season starts. This time next Thursday, I'm going to be pumped up. I'm not going to lie to you, but this weekend, I'm not going to sell it to you as the start of college football, even though it does start this weekend. This time next week is when I'm really looking forward to the complete beginning of the college football season in 2021.
Are we still slightly surprised? I thought this would have happened by now. The 24 hours of college football, similar to what they used to do with 24 hours of college basketball. I thought that they would have done something similar now, starting on like a Thursday night or something. You'd have a big Thursday night. The way ESPN sold us the start of the college basketball season with the 20, which was neat, right? I'm not saying they were the best games. The best games always concluded with the Champions Classic is how they would always do it. You'd have Duke, Kansas. I think it was Michigan State, Kentucky. That would be the Champions Classic. It was the conclusion of it. But you'd have the games going all night. I would have thought it was easier to pull this off with college football. That
because the games are longer. You don't need to schedule as many.
They're longer, and what all you'd have to do is if you started like on Wednesday night, you could start on Wednesday night at like 7:00 with you can start anywhere, Midwestern or wherever. But I was going to say, you think about it, if you had like what would essentially be a midnight kick on the East Coast would be a 9 p.m. kick on the West Coast. And I'm not saying it has to be California versus Utah State. You can use an FCS program. You could have 2 FCS programs going. And then your 3 a.m. game, let's be honest, they're already playing this weekend, so they're up for anything, would be Hawaii. You have a game out in Hawaii. There's your 3 a.m. game. And then you think about some of the FCS programs. You think, I'm just asking, maybe people would be like, no, they never do that. You think Wofford would like to have like a 7 a.m. ESPN nationally televised game against somebody, against another FCS opponent?
That's tough.
I'm not saying it's easy.
I don't know. Is it easier to wake up at 7 a.m. and play basketball than it is to go out there and start hitting people?
I would say yes, for sure. And I think the risk of injury, obviously, much more in football. And I was thinking from an economic standpoint, you only get 6 to 7 home games per year. And I think an athletic department just relies on that money so much more than a basketball gate, for instance.
Were there international games for this basketball deal? Was this like I don't even really remember. It wasn't like
I don't know if they were
island games or anything like that.
In Berlin.
Hawaii.
No, I think you're right. Like the game in Berlin was not. It was Michigan State playing Syracuse, I think, over in Berlin, like in an Air Force hangar. But I don't think that was tied in with the 24 hours of basketball. The 24 hours of basketball was always just kind of the random games out on the West Coast. I think it was always a Hawaii game, sometime around 2 or 3 a.m. and they would come back. But I remember, this is within the last 5 years. Tim, us being in the studio, and I want to say I watched Wofford. We had Wofford on the one of the big screens in front of us at one point. Mm-hmm. So, that was the thing. And I actually was a little surprised they did away with that. I know South Carolina participated in it once. I think it was Baylor they played around noon or 2 o'clock.
Yep.
At that point. So, yeah, you've had that kind of stuff happen. I don't know. I guess I always.
Pac-12's playing 9 a.m.ers now, right?
Well, think about that. Yeah,
but 7 is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I guess you could mess around and have like a college football preview show from 6 to 8, 6 to 9, a 3-hour preview show, and I don't know. There's a lot of ways around it. I guess to an extent, the way ESPN promotes college football, I'm always kind of surprised they haven't done like a huge opening weekend type deal.
Well, it's growing internationally. You should have an international game. I know they wanted to do the Dublin game, right?
Mm-hmm. We were sending them Nebraska and Illinois.
Yeah,
that game was actually supposed to Nebraska and Illinois, the 2 teams that resonate with Ireland the most, of course, right outside of Notre Dame. They are actually number 2 and number 3. Notre Dame number 1, obviously, but yes, they were going to, I believe, Dublin this year to be playing on Saturday.
Dublin.
Listen, buddy, you spend 2 hours in some of those pubs, you're saying Dublin.
I know football's big in Germany. We could play a game in Berlin.
I can tell you that.
Send a couple teams to Berlin. I don't know what time it is in Germany relative to here, but you can play a game there.
Yeah, the cost, though, just compared to basketball, especially for those teams, the equipment, everything to go over there, and especially in this climate, makes 0 sense at this point, Bill. I hear what you're saying. It's an interesting concept, but we've talked about it so many times how college football, one thing that's special about a road trip, if you go on the road with your team, is that you get to spend a weekend in a college town and kind of take in the whole environment. I think that would really skew things if you got an odd kickoff time, for sure. This is more of a made-for-TV event, and I think that's...
Well, and again, I don't think – I almost would not expect – I would not expect the SEC, ACC, Big Ten, in particular, to participate. Who knows what would happen with it? Maybe the Big 12 would take all they can get right now. I feel like the games you're getting in the middle of Friday is like an 11 a.m. Tulsa. Well, you probably get some MAC. We definitely get some MAC, right? MAC, we're definitely getting an 11 a.m. Toledo, like Akron game. From the Glass Bowl or whichever one that one is.
Wait a second. Would this be the only idea that the Alliance could have presented that would make them worse right now? Like, hey guys, here's what we've come up with. This is what we're gonna do.
We're not even gonna schedule games at the same time as the SEC. We're playing overnight, baby.
I've been using Crackle, right? Yeah. But think about what's happening, and this is I kind of started making this argument. I don't think people have exactly figured this out. Like I guess as a television consumer of football, it doesn't bother me. But if I was an Oregon fan, especially not going to Ohio State, I would be livid that Oregon is playing Ohio State at noon, which is 9. If I'm in Oregon, I'm waking up at 9 a.m. to watch that game. Like, I understand the athletic director for Oklahoma being upset that Oklahoma-Nebraska, I realize it's not a national rivalry anymore, but it is a big-time game. Having that game at 11 a.m., whenever, I think it's week 2 or week 3, whatever. It's a noon game. Like, Fox's prime time game is big noon kickoff. Like that's they're putting their games on at noon.
Wait, is the Oregon? You're saying the Oregon Ohio State game is
a noon
Eastern?
Yes.
Noon Eastern. So Oregon, they have to wake up by 9 o'clock.
I think Pat Forty or Dennis Dodd had it. It was called body clock games, and he was pointing out like certain games this year with teams going East Coast, West Coast, and all that.
Right.
And yeah, for Oregon, he said it's a 9 a.m. body clock game.
Yeah.
So they will be. I don't know when they'll go to Columbus to adjust to the time change, but it's a noon game. I think it's week 2, September 11th, I believe. It might be the 18th, but
because at least Oklahoma and Nebraska are used to playing 11 a.m. games,
right,
and the fans are used to being up for an 11 o'clock kickoff. But nobody's used to a 9 a.m. football game.
Patrick, you've been to Nashville, but I don't know if you've done when you went.
I did the South Carolina Ole Miss game. That was a noon kick.
So it was 11 a.m. Oxford time.
Yeah, 11 a.m. Oxford time.
I remember the first time I ever it dawned on me was the 04 game up in Nashville, and a bunch of buddies and I went up. That was the last year of Lou Holtz, and Jamacia Jackson had the interception and ran it back. South Carolina. Everybody was real worried. I think Cutler was the quarterback for Vanderbilt at that time, and everybody was very worried about an upset and whatnot. But we get up to Nashville, we're all excited, we're all fired up, we all go out, everybody's multiple drinks in, and one of our brilliant leaders there with the group was like, "Hey, you guys realize it's not really a noon kick here? It's an 11 a.m. kick, and we gotta be up in a couple hours."
It's tough. I had to limp into a LSU game at Vanderbilt a couple years ago.
I had a different experience with that game, Bill, covering high school football on Friday night. Getting into the car, driving through the night, being there about 2 hours before game time. I remember at halftime, I was just like looking around, sitting down. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it here. Fortunately, the Gamecocks actually played really well that day and started off strong that season. Was it Dondrell Pinkins as a starting quarterback? And they just kind of manhandled Vandy that day 17 years ago. Wow, that's pretty mind-boggling. We're just 9 days away now from the 2021 season opener, and a week from today, college football really getting going in a big way. Appalachian State, East Carolina, one of those Thursday night games. What is it? The Ohio State game that night? That's the national headline. Is that right? Is that what's going down a week from today? Or am I thinking of a different game?
I'm looking right now.
Ohio State.
Oh yeah, Minnesota.
Ohio State, Minnesota. Yeah, I remember you brought that one up yesterday, Bill, and you got the rowing the boat with PJ Fleck and the whole deal.
The Thursday night schedule next week, I'm not disappointed with it, and I'm a person who loved the Thursday night, the more fun back when we had. But you guys remember Cam Newton played, to me, Cam Newton's debut, not his actual debut, but Cam Newton's debut. Tim, I don't know if you remember this. Patrick, you might be a little bit too young.
I do not. I remember later.
Was beating Auburn late in the game in Lexington, Kentucky on a Thursday night. Auburn and Kentucky are playing on a Thursday night. This is, 10 years ago, I guess? Is that right? 11? Does that seem right? Was it 12?
11 years
ago. It was 11, yeah.
Was that, okay, 2010, so 11 years ago. The bottom line is Kentucky is beating Auburn on a Thursday night. That was your ESPN Thursday night game, Auburn and Kentucky, and Cam Newton took Auburn down the field at the very end to win the football game. And I remember watching. I used to get these great Thursday night games. Next week, you got Boise State and Central Florida on Thursday night. Tim mentioned the East Carolina Appalachian State game. Minnesota is playing Ohio State. You got a couple. It'll be a 3 television night next Thursday night.
All Bill pumped up. We got to press the pause button, though. Still a little patience to go. Fortunately, we got to hear from both coordinators from Gamecock football yesterday. When we come back here from Clayton White and his philosophy on how many guys he wants he wants and needs to have ready and needs to have trust in to put on the field for the Gamecock defense. Also, some specific guys that have stood out to him in preseason camp. 803-404-6100. If you would like to join in on the conversation, you can give us a call or text there. You can check us out on the live video stream right now, sponsored by Buford Lending, up on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter as well. It's the early game here on 107.5 The Game.
107.5 The Game. The Game is on the air, online, on your phone, or on the
Good luck out there, bro.
All right.
From the Shepherd's Glass Traffic
I will
Center,
return.
Shepherd's Glass, a true.
All right, man.
All right, you can remove me.
What are you smirking at?
The last text we got. Not sure what to think of, not sure what to believe about this. And it's just a random Gamecock account saying Zeb was trash at Iowa State. What, their opinion? Not sure what to believe about someone's opinion? I don't know. Doesn't really matter what you believe.
Definitely text in a Sports Talk Radio show to know what you should believe about opinion on Twitter. That mindset is mind-boggling. Like, my first thought would be, hey, I see that somebody has this opinion. Let me look up the numbers and see the facts. What did this guy do at those days?
Man. I'll tell you what to believe, Brad. He wears number 25. Enough said.
7 had you slayed the other way. Like, oh, this guy's going to be it.
Yeah, because number 7 is a sick number. Is 7 the coolest number, or was Michael Vick cool? I can't even tell, really. I think number 1 might be the coolest number.
7 was the quarterback number for me growing up.
Yeah.
And
I don't think 8's that cool. Like, there's always somebody that made each number cool. Like, Steve Young for sure made 8 cool, but 8 doesn't look cool.
That's Lamar Jackson, right?
Yeah. I like the straight edges. I don't like the rounded. I don't think it looks as cool. But a number 1's going to look cool on any jersey.
And it looks cool either way, whether you're upside down. Oh, wait, that's a car.
That's right. That's right. I do think 19 is probably the maybe 17. 17 is not a great number, though.
I like 19.
Morning, Allen. RL, good call on number 8 for Aikman. Yes, the number snob. There, Dave.
A little bit. I wore in college I was 34. High school I was 23.
They're good numbers.
Yeah.
Hey, can you explain why you feel better about Zeb Nolan than the other options for Gamecock football, which would be Jason Brown or Colton Gauthier? Oh, little dad joke for Chris this morning. Got that one from the 8-year-old not too long.
Yeah.
There you go.
I do think 10's a sharp. I think 10's a sharp number for a quarterback. I agree with that.
Kind of like 11 there, the old Spurrier number.
Jason is a Giants fan, I think. I remember that. But as much as Eli had just no swag, it is a sharp-looking number, I think. 5 I can get on board with. Not too many great number 5s, though, are there?
No.
I think of Flacco and Bortles immediately.
Huh.
Donovan McNabb.
Yeah, if you're a running back now, 22, I think, strong.
22 is a good-looking number, yeah.
Yeah, but why? Why the thought on Nolan and Gauthier? I get, okay, you don't trust Brown in particular reason.
Barton Starr wore number 5? Did he? I would actually not be able to tell you what number Barton Starr wore.
I would guess 1.
I thought he played the 4 numbers. No, he wore 15. Oh, Tommy gave us that trivia fact one day. Do you know how numbers started on baseball jerseys?
No clue.
I think, if I remember correctly, it was they gave everyone their number assigned to what they were hitting in the batting order. And that was how the numbers first originated.
That makes sense. Heath Schuler. Wow.
But was he number 5? He didn't win a Super Bowl
Garcia.
for me.
It was Garcia and Stephon Gilmore wearing number 5, I think, back in the day. That's why Gilmore couldn't come in Wildcat packages with Garcia spread out. Now it's Kerryon Joyner switching back to number 5, I think. That was the number you were in high school. Got some T-shirts out now, too.
I definitely would not have been able to tell you Heath Schuler wore 5. I could tell you the Super Bowl winning quarterback's numbers because I've watched those games.
Heading back in.
Jen, can we do number 7 straight in, please? Actually,
No.
we'll do number 5.
5 straight in.
Yeah, that stands on its own.
Is that a better number?
Pat.
So number 5.
Portion of the preseason. Who are some of the guys that have really grown a lot since the beginning of camp to now and have really impressed you in that regard?
I will start up front like always. I will say the guy that's grown the most to me, besides some of the regular names, is I think Alex Huntley has now completely, shown us that he has the ability to be a big guy that can move around and make plays up front and be a productive interior defensive lineman since Ricky's been out, unfortunately. The other guys, Mo Kaba. Mo Kaba has stepped up the past 10 days.
Aye.
The camp, so along with him and Debo Williams. Those are the main 3 guys that pops out to my name right now.
Clayton White, defensive coordinator for Gamecock football, speaking along with offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield yesterday. Kaba and Williams, the linebackers there, relatively young linebackers. Good news for Gamecock football. They're developing depth. And then Huntley, a young guy on the defensive line that was talked about a bunch, in part with his Hammond high school teammate in Jordan Birch for sure. And I know you were over there at Hammond helping out with lacrosse at the time that Alex Huntley was there, and you were impressed with you weren't there watching him play football specifically, but just with the character, knowing he was the school president and the whole thing over there, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, he's just an impressive kid, and he's everything about his situation is exactly what you expect to be a big breakout year 2 candidate. Factor in, he didn't come in the spring. He stayed his whole senior year because he had a bunch of extracurriculars and being a class president and all that stuff. He just wanted to finish high school with all of his classmates. So he didn't come out. He came in the summer, not, I guess, the majority. What percentage of guys are spring enrollees now? Like a little more than half? Is that what you'd say?
I'd say a little less than half, but if you're talking about a 25-person class, 12-ish, I'd say right around half is about right.
Right. So he came late, and he was hurt, and there was the COVID season. So it was just a massive tornado of just things that were going to hurt his development. So, I mean, being hurt, he was probably not able to be in the weight room as much as he would have liked, and just a combination of things that didn't let him grow as much as he wanted to. So having a full year coaching staff, full year in the strength and nutrition program and all that good stuff, he should be ready to come out firing. And he was highly recruited too. We were very excited about him. It wasn't 1A and 1B to Jordan Birch really. He's a big time player. So I fully expect that. And Kaba and Williams, I guess I that makes a lot of sense. Linebackers, I just feel like they got to be on the field because it's such an instinctive position, and you kind of have to know what everything is going on around you. I like that they're picking things up because they kind of have to be the leaders of the defense, but I think they just need to get out on the field and see bullets flying all the time. It's just, I don't know. It's always been the issue with NFL linebackers. There's been a lot of recent first-round picks as linebackers because they're just freak athletes, and then it just takes them a couple years to get used to it because they're just getting picked apart with RPOs and things like that. Everything's designed to just confuse the linebacker nowadays. So I'm glad that they're picking it up, but we got to see them out on the field before we can make any real judgments.
It's going to be really interesting to see what this group of linebackers does for Clayton White, especially now that he's changing the defense to the 4-2-5. And I feel like as fans, we really don't know who the best linebackers are. I mean, you get a stat line, you see a bunch of tackles, you see a bunch of interceptions in years past here for Gamecock football, and you think, oh, these guys are great. And then, I mean, just Ernest Jones getting drafted in the third round in the NFL draft. To me, I never would have thought that would have happened from what we've seen on the field here in the last few years. But we do know that Gamecock football has to get some better production from its linebacking core in general, and needs to have guys in there making plays for them for sure. More from Clayton White, the defensive coordinator, now about just how many guys he expects to get out on the field this season, and I guess especially that relates to the September 4th opener against Eastern Illinois.
Defensively, it's between 15 and 17 guys that normally that the coaches can look in their eyes and say they trust them out on the field and make the calls and the checks and doing their job. That's what it's about. Defense is about doing your job, and up front doing your job. A linebacker, being aggressive, making checks, and the defensive backfield. I mean, we got to trust you. Your mistake, scoreboard in the defensive backfield. So it's all about trust, and those would be the most trusted guys would be the ones that play.
And it's a breath of fresh air. And again, that was Clayton White, defensive coordinator for Gamecock football, to hear an answer to a question, a simple question like, how many guys, or what do you think the rotation will be like? And you put a number to it. I was really impressed with Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator. I think it wasn't this past press conference, but the one before. How many wide receivers do you need ready to play? 5. Okay, very simple. Like these are foundational numbers for these guys and their coaching philosophies, and not being afraid to kind of let us in on that process, I think is part of the Gamecock football fan base feeling more a part of the program, or a part of like relating to the coaching staff, which is a little bit different than in years past. What do you make of 15 to 17 guys, Patrick? If I had given you a number beforehand to guess, would you have gone somewhere in that neighborhood? I probably would have gone, let's see, I
think 15's low. Yeah, I was going to say 15's low.
Because I'm thinking about how the defensive line, you're pretty much rotating at least 6 guys in those 4 spots, and I would say probably 8. So I probably would have started with 8 in that number, and then gone at least 4 more linebackers to get to 12, and then you got 5 starting defensive backs at this point, so that would be 17 already. I would say you rotate at least 3 guys in there. I probably would have got up to 20, but hearing Clayton White talk about trust as much as he did, I mean, that's the big thing, especially in that defensive backfield, especially if you got 5 guys on the field at the same time. The trust and the communication, it was going to be so key for Clayton White and his guys.
Yeah, I was thinking, if you're starting, if it's a 4-2-5 and you're starting 5 defensive backs, you're probably going to have 1 or 2 guys rotating in there just to spell guys if they're getting tired. You're probably going to have 3 linebackers playing maybe. If there's certain situations where you need another linebacker on the field, if it's an obvious run situation, you probably want another linebacker to take a defensive back off the field. So I'd say maybe 3. But on the defensive line, I agree, especially when you're as deep as we feel like South Carolina is kind of on the defensive line. You really just want to be able to rotate 2 full groups out there. Like continuity, sure, but if you can keep guys coming 100 miles an hour on every single play and giving it 100%, that's really what you want. You don't want the last thing you want is defensive linemen with their hands on their hips while the offense is huddling. Then you've got problems. Well, and that's always what the best pass rushers are, is just two groups coming at you nonstop.
That was one of the rare instances, in my opinion, where Will Muschamp was pretty clear with us in his tenure. He said, once the big guys get gassed, there ain't no coming back. Like those guys are done once they're gassed. On the defensive line specifically, he would say, I'm interested to see if there's going to be a bit of a learning curve. When we talk to Clayton White this time, August 2022, if that number will have changed after a full season, his first season as an SEC defensive coordinator. It will be interesting to see, because both he and Marcus Satterfield haven't done it for full seasons as coordinators in the SEC or in Power 5 football. So I'm sure they have thrown some ideas towards Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer has thrown some ideas back. I mean, he's been in the big boy game for 21 years as an assistant coach. So I'm not trying to tell you that these guys are completely innocent or naive or don't know what they're talking about. But having not been in there game in and game out for 12 games during an entire regular season at this level, it will be interesting to see if these things get tweaked a little bit going into year number 2.
Well, they're going to have to. I mean, 15-17, now that I'm thinking about it more, that's if everything is ideal. Like, I'm sure a defensive coordinator says, yeah, we're getting off the field in 3 or 4 plays on every possession. And if that's the case, guys aren't going to be tired. You can play 15 guys for the whole game because they're going to be quite all right. But if you go through a couple game span like we did with LSU and Texas A&M, and they're just running down your throat all game long, and guys are just gassed and just have nothing left, well, you're not going to be able to play 17 guys. You're going to need to play over 20 guys most likely because your defensive linemen are playing 10 snaps on every possession. That's just not. You can't do that. You can't win that way, and guys are just not going to have any juice by the end of it.
Well, talking about the total number of plays, Clayton White kind of hinting towards that when he was asked about how the operational process will work about calling the defensive plays for the Gamecocks this year.
Guys in the box that tell me what's in the huddle or what's on the field, and then I rip down the call, and then somebody will signal in and cross our fingers and make sure everybody executes what they're supposed to do, and move it and do it about 85 times for about 3 hours. So pretty cool process. I love it.
You could kind of hear it in his voice there, the smile as he was talking about ripping down the play call and going. You could tell just by listening and watching him. He loves his job, and being a defensive coordinator, man, to me, that is the one guy that you want to have on your staff with a bunch of energy and enthusiasm and aggression. You know, as an offensive coordinator, I feel like you got to be under control. You got to make sure that you're thinking several chess moves ahead, the whole thing. I don't want my offensive coordinator fist bumping and doing showing a bunch of emotion. I like the guy up with the reading glasses on in the press box with a bunch of information that clearly seems several moves ahead. To me, if I had my, how I was building a football team, that's my offensive coordinator over there.
You don't like him throwing clipboards?
Well, that guy's a little different. We all know Lane Kiffin's a little different. The guy who I want to be that energetic kind of fire plug assistant coach is the defensive coordinator. Maybe this is coming off of being raised in the Joe Lee Dunn days back in Gamecock football, fire ant defense, and all the blitzing and all of that. But will be interesting to see the persona for Clayton White. Patrick, you disagree with the defensive coordinator mindset?
No, I 100% agree that the defensive coordinator needs to be that guy because it's a reactionary position. You have to always be in attack mode as a defensive coordinator, but you have to also be measured and respond to what the offense is giving you. I was thinking more about the offensive side where there's multiple ways to do it. You can have Andy Reid just staring behind his play sheet with glasses and just very relaxed, or you can have Lane Kiffin up there throwing things and pumping guys up. And I mean, he's always done that. Put up the touchdown signal when he sees a certain coverage, and as soon as the ball is snapped, he knows it's a touchdown. Like I like it both ways, but I mean, some of the best guys in the game, I think Lane Kiffin would definitely fit the very measured, very quiet, just standing there making all the right decisions. But like Steve Spurrier wasn't that guy.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you got to be who you are as well. Just the fact that Clayton White couldn't talk about the operation of calling the plays yesterday without smiling, I think to me reveals a lot about his personality and where he is in his career as well, because he's still got a lot to prove. He's still certainly on his ascent in college football. And Shane Beamer, I think, talked about how other people were coming after him in Power 5 football. I think the report was out there that Oregon wanted him as a defensive coordinator as well, while Beamer was basically hiring him at South Carolina. So I think in his head, he kind of fast forwarded to the opportunity and back on the sidelines. And this is a guy who played football at the highest level at the linebacker position for NC State, I think a couple of years in the NFL as well. But will be really interesting to see what happens with the Carolina defense with Clayton White leading the way going into this season for sure. We kick off the second half of the show. When we come back, 803-404-6100. If you would like to weigh in, get back into the offensive side of the ball and some of those comments from Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator for Gamecock football, when we come back. It's the early game here on 107.5 The Game.
This is South Carolina head women's basketball coach Dawn Staley, and you're listening to the home of the Gamecocks, WNKT FM, Eastover, Columbia, 107.5 The Game.
Professionals. That's what we're talking about today when we're talking about coaches, but I got some professional help for you around your house, because we need all the professional help we can get around my house these days with 3 kids, 8, 6, and 1. Zero Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning has been out to our house, done a great job cleaning our carpets, cleaning the area rug for us. They clean the tiles in the kitchen and the bathroom. Great results. Really impressed my wife in that process. What impressed me with Zero Res is that they do it differently than anybody else. It's a patented powered water system. You can find out all the details, zerorescolumbia.com, where you can book your appointment today. They crank up the pH in the water, a bunch of science involved. I don't quite understand all of that. What I do understand is that I had nothing to worry about because no harsh chemicals involved in the process with Zero Res. Also, my carpets have stayed cleaner longer because there's no leftover soapy residue involved to attract dirt into my carpets. That's something that I appreciate, both of those things, massively, especially with the 8, 6, and 1-year-old boys trashing the house. What was it yesterday that was getting thrown all over the place? I forget what it was, but that's how the 1-year-old signals that he's done eating these days. Just starts throwing food every single time. Just angry. Makes me bitter real quick. I got to get over that for sure. What I want you to do is give Zero Res a call at 803-262-4020. 3 rooms of carpet cleaned, only $119, plus a free hallway when you mention me, Tim Hill. That's 803-262-4020, zerorescolumbia.com. That's Zero Res. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean.
Clear.
Did your Washington football team ever get three names? They ever narrow it down?
No, there was a list of 8 that the top 3 was reportedly going to be chosen between, but I think Jason Brown has denied that. So, but he has confirmed that it's down to 3, but they're not giving us the 3.
Well, who's this backup quarterback name stealing Jason Brown? Is that the president of the football team?
Jason Wright. Sorry, Jason Brown's in my head. Jason Wright's his name. He's our president.
Gotcha.
Northwestern guy.
Yeah, I was thinking about Gus Malzahn as I was talking about offensive coordinators throwing out the boom hammer.
But he's also got the glasses and kind of nerdy looking. He's got fire.
And now he's got the gray hair to go with the glasses.
Yeah.
What are the 8? Chris wants to know.
I can't remember the full 8, but it was 2 reds.
Do you hate all of them?
Yeah,
well, I wouldn't. Oh yeah.
There were 2 reds. It was the Red Hogs and the Red Wolves. The Washington football team was on that list. The Armada and Brigade were on that list.
Ugh.
I think the Presidents was on that list.
Ugh.
If we're the Washington Presidents, I might become just a full-time Saints fan. I can't actually see a situation where I'm going to like the name.
Makes sense.
I don't know that it's going to be possible. That's why I almost just hope they stay Washington football team or like Washington FC or like DC FC. I don't even care. I wish we were just Washington. I wish we were Washington Football Club or something like that right now, because now people can just kind of mockingly say, "Oh, the Cowboys are playing the football team," and it just sounds stupid. And I know that's why they're not going to keep football team, because they've been doing it's like search engine type stuff, and like all these algorithms for stat websites and things like that are just set to put the mascot or the team name, so it just looks dumb when football team is on a list amongst the Giants, Eagles, Cowboys football team. Just doesn't work.
And when is it to be decided, did you say?
It's supposed to be decided this year, but go into effect next year. I think it's supposed to be decided pretty soon. The longer that they drag it out, the worse it's going to be if the name sucks.
Precisely.
I know he said that trademarking is an issue, and there's also an issue with applying for trademarks because that'll basically give it away if the Washington football team or whatever the LLC or whatever it is called starts applying for a bunch of different trademarks, and then
you can't tell me now with this list of 8 that a bunch of schmoes out there haven't applied for the trademarks for all of them.
Oh yeah, that's another problem, that people own them, and nobody really wants to cut Dan Snyder a deal.
What a mess.
Yeah, it should have just kind of all been done quietly.
I know for years and years, Dan Snyder owned the trademark for Washington Warriors, but in the last year and a half or something, really, really short, he let it expire.
Perfect.
And someone snatched it up.
Yeah,
but they said they're not going with Warriors. They said Warriors is too close to Redskins. So
that pretty much sums up Dan Snyder, though, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've been through the trademark process a few times. Once you've done all that and the samples have been used and all that kind of stuff, you don't let that stuff expire. You don't let it lapse.
The president, Jason Wright, did say we're going through an extra process right now and doing all of our due diligence so that we can be sure that as soon as we do decide a name, we're not going to be in court over it for the next 3 years, dragging this thing out, which I understand. And there's only so many names you can come up with that somebody hasn't already tried to get it. And then when they want to make their website, every domain name is probably taken right now too. I think I think they're just Washington NFL. What they are?
I'm bad about that. I have a lot of domain names.
Washington Football.
Really?
Yeah. If there's an idea that I have, I go ahead and snag it so that I can run with it if I need to.
Smart.
Yep. I have timhill.com. No, I'm kidding.
It's a good director for Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, I think.
All right, you guys are up.
This time tomorrow, Patrick, I think you'll be a happy guy. I'm guessing Panera will be showing up at Charwood, our 14th anniversary golf tournament. You want to get Patrick out of a bad mood, just really works. We got Panera breakfast and Little Pigs barbecue lunch on tap for you tomorrow. A couple of spots left. If you'd like to sign up for our 10 a.m. 4-person Captain's Choice golf tournament tomorrow, you can still sign up as an individual. I believe there might be a foursome or 2 still available. 803-755-2000 is the number. The local number would just give them a call to register. We got a $10,000 hole-in-one grand prize sponsored by Buford Lending. A trip to Kiowa for the winning team will be the first place prize. We even have a last place trophy that I've already seen a glimpse of that I think you'll enjoy, or everybody who doesn't get it will enjoy. Raffle off a pair of tickets to the Gamecock football season opener. It's our 14th anniversary golf tournament over at Charwood tomorrow, 10 a.m. Presented by Integrated Media. Looking forward to being out there and seeing everybody having some fun. We're going to raise some money for Camp Cole, have a heckle hole there on number 17. I'm looking forward to doing that as well. Patrick, if you would have gone, I guess you could give it a unique insight in this. You joined us as an intern. You have now taken a different role. Do you think it's anything like what Zeb Nolan is going through with Gamecock football? Hearing offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield talk yesterday, he said it's been a bit of an adjustment to not ask him to make copies or bring coffee or to make a relationship evolve from coach to coach, which is what Satterfield, coach and graduate assistant with Zeb Nolan, was the first few weeks. And now it's coach and player. But Satterfield said, not to worry, I got off him a little bit at practice today, and he took well to it, and he responded well to it and the whole deal. How do you feel like that transition has to be for both those guys at this point?
I don't know. It's the complete opposite of what a normal person could imagine. I'm imagining you're part of the, ground floor rent, regular employees, and then you get promoted to management, and now all the employees look at you different, oh, you used to be one of us, and now you're the boss. But it's like a manager being demoted down to just an average working stiff, and I'm just curious what was his relationship like? I mean, he said making copies. Is that what it was? Or was he in the coaching room and the coaches had the door shut and the players were gone and they were saying, man, so-and-so's just got the worst attitude. This kid can't play a lick. And now Zeb Nolan's back in the quarterback room with him, knowing exactly how the coaches talked about him behind closed doors, and you move from the coaches' locker room to the players' locker room and everyone looks at you like you're a plant from the coaches, and it's just weird. His first relationships were with the coaches, and now he's just got to be one of the guys in the players' locker room. It's a very, very weird situation.
Yeah, except when you're a graduate assistant, it's a little different, right? You're not a manager. You're on the bottom rung of the coach's totem pole. And when you're drawing the plays in the playbook, right, that is a much different deal than being the offensive coordinator. And just having played golf with Nolan in that Birdies for Beamer deal, it was really interesting to see. Like Greg Atkins was playing with us. Zeb Nolan referred to him as Coach Ad. Like it was not a pure relationship. And again, he'd only been there several weeks in the whole thing, and he's coming from having played just in the spring. But it was very much out of respect in the whole deal, how I would expect a player to address a coach and not a fellow coach to address a coach, even though that some of them still do that. And also just knowing his personality, like he's an easy dude to like. He is that guy, like, there are just some guys that as soon as you are going to play golf with them or you're around them, you're like, yeah, like whatever. I forget what it was exactly about Zeb. It was, just as soon as I met him, he didn't take himself seriously. It was a comment probably. I forget what it was exactly, but you could tell. And then throughout the round, he would throw in some things like, man, really like Luke. Like Luke and I are buddies now. And there was one conversation that 5 points came up. Oh, it's because Mike Ula was playing with us and had a night the night before, I believe. And he's talking about the specific place in there. And Zeb was just like, yeah, that ain't for me. Basically just talking about that kind of lifestyle. I was like, oh, well, I feel like I kind of know this guy. He's not afraid to put it out there. I think he has the specific personality that you need to be able to kind of go between these two worlds and the situation here. If you can play, you can play. And that's ultimately what players respect, Patrick. And as long as you do it with some humility and likability, I think it's a relatively easy transition. I know you're having a hard time getting around this whole coach to player deal.
I'm trying to figure out how to compare it, because when I was a freshman playing lacrosse, the staffs aren't as big. So, our offensive coordinator happened to be a grad assistant. He also happened to be one of the best players in the world at the time and was playing professionally and still in grad school to coach. But he was a year removed from college and he was the offensive coordinator. So he'd be yelling at guys, like ripping into them at practice and really upsetting people and making them run and all this stuff. And he was like a tough coach on people, but then would try and come into the lunchroom while we're all sitting around eating at the dining hall and sit down at the table and try to goof around and cut up with kids at the table. And it was just always a very weird situation. Like he had a lot in common with our seniors and was like friends with a couple seniors and would like work out extra with them and hang out with them. And as a freshman watching it, I thought it was really bizarre. And just, it's a fine line to walk when you obviously have so much more in common with the players because you are in school. Like you're also a student, and you're much closer in age than a 50-year-old coach who could be your father. It is a weird line to walk, and then going the opposite direction and having to walk that line and then say, you know what? No, I'm a full-time player now. I'm just one of the guys. Like it takes a certain type of personality to be able to handle that.
Yeah, I think when you are being used as the guy to literally draw up the playbook and just starting your coaching career and doing it at the big time level like this, a little different situation than yours for sure. I think a little easier to make that transition for Nolan. I mentioned that because Marcus Satterfield, speaking at length yesterday, let you hear some of his comments when we come back here. Dramatic conclusion of hour number 2 on the early game. It's 107.5 game.
107.5 the game. The game is on everywhere, on the air,
You're not going to sell that guy out by name?
Well, I don't know who he is. If anybody follows the cross, they would know who Manny now.
Is he still?
No. Well, yeah, he's actually the offense coordinator at Utah, and he's still he's playing pro ball. He's like a couple years. I'm 20. He's probably 30. But yeah, he's still one of the best players in the world. Both of my coaches, 2 of the 3 of my coaches at college were like all-time great players. One of them won a national championship at Virginia. My head coach won a national championship in Virginia. Like everyone in lacrosse knew who he was, and he was the MVP of the professional league a couple times, like complete stud. And then brought in his professional teammate. It's like we were watching highlights of the Boston Cannons, and our head coach would be just throwing dimes to our offensive coordinator on the biggest stage in lacrosse, which wasn't. Nobody outside of it cared about it, but everyone in the lacrosse world knew who they were.
And are they now well-respected coaches?
Yeah. Well, more or less. I mean, the offensive guy, Will Manny, is an offensive coordinator with one of his teammates, and his teammate's dad is like a legend in lacrosse and started up the program at Utah a couple years ago, because Utah's very new to Division I lacrosse. I think they're 3 or 4 years into it now. So he started up that program basically. They weren't great the first couple of years, but they're probably going to be a powerhouse here pretty soon.
Is the head guy still at Wagner?
No, he left Wagner to move to a Division III school. It's a really good Division III school, but he needed to be closer to home because he's from Jersey, and there's like personal stuff involved in that decision. But he's an extremely respected person, like definitely big time. I always hated though, because the Tuarton is the like Heisman of lacrosse, and the year before he was on our coaching staff, Will Manny had been the runner-up for the Tuarton Award, and we would be doing like one-on-ones in practice, and he'd bring his helmet and gloves out, and he'd be like, "Yeah, all right, Pat, 1-on-1," and he'd just torch me. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You're like one of the best players on the planet. You're just smoking me to like pat yourself on the back. Like, of course I'm not going to be able to take the ball from you. What are we doing here? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's tricky, man. I think coaches have to realize how they're being perceived.
Yeah.
I only played 1 year of college baseball, but our head coach would get out there and take like ground balls with us, and like the experienced players would be like, "What is this guy doing?" They would call him behind his back. Like it didn't go over well.
Yeah, when I coached high school, I made sure I'd bring my stick to toss around, but I would like never ever try to get involved in any sort of drill. Like, It's just doing too much. Especially bringing pads out. When you're a coach bringing pads to practice, I don't like it.
It's tricky for sure.
Yeah, lacrosse is weird. Like, he would leave. There were times where he would leave our game and be like, "All right, I got to get on a plane to Boston. We got a game tomorrow." So we'd leave our game and go play his pro game the next day.
Jim, let's come back with 4 straight in, please. I imagine we don't have a ton of time, right? You're on mute. Let's see if I can unmute you. No.
Sorry. 4 straight in. Yeah, we're taking the extra minute, but you'll be fine.
When I've got a really good running back that can be 150, 175-yard rusher, and he rushes for 75 because we're going by committee possessions in the first half. So compete and get out there.
Marcus Satterfield, offensive coordinator for the Gamecocks. Interesting. And basically the exact opposite of what we've heard in the last several years from Gamecock football, going with the hot hand. Satterfield also adding specifically, I don't want to be the guy who goes with the hot hand. I want to be a guy who doesn't have the running back by committee. Patrick, the old football cliche is always, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. I think we were talking about the Eastern Illinois 5-man quarterback competition.
Yeah.
You modified that a little bit earlier. But I haven't heard it, especially recently, about the running back position, just because of the physical toll that these guys take, especially in the SEC. What do you make of what you just heard?
I mean,
45.
It depends what kind of guy you got as your workhorse. Like, you also hear about these beast running backs that they say get stronger as the game goes on. Like, Derrick Henry's made a name for basically closing out games, and no one can tackle him by the time the fourth quarter comes around. Kevin Harris seems like he might
30.
Guy that, trying to tackle him for 3 quarters, you're not going to have anything left when the fourth quarter comes. So, and also riding the hot hand and getting comfortable. Running backs always seem to need a couple carries to get their feet underneath of them. So I go back and forth. You like to have a change of pace,
15.
to have fresh legs in every play, but there is a sense of feeling it out that I kind of buy with.
Satterfield also talking about getting a bunch of running backs on the field, especially if they're the better players. Interesting situation. We'll talk more about it. Hour number 3 coming up.
This is Todd Ellis, and you're listening to one of the Gamecocks, 107.5 The Game, WNKT, Eastover, Columbia.
All right, the question is, how do you spend the last few days of non-football season? What has to get done in your life before football season hits? Me, I'm pumped. I reorganized the garage over here to my left not too long ago. I feel like I'm prepared for football season now. We can move forward. Going into the fall sports now with the boys. We got, 1, 2, 3, 5 practices the next 3 days.
Yep.
That's where I'm at. What about you, Jen? You got anything you needed to get done in the yard before football season hits?
No, it's all the standard maintenance stuff. I feel like I always have projects. Like, there's just a whole, oh my gosh, 2 4-foot dog houses.
Yeah, impressive, RL.
But we're just at that point where we're now trying to clean out stuff. You've been in the house for quite a while, so it's like, okay, it's time to start thinning out the crap.
Yeah, it's a good place to be. Yeah, we're definitely in that spot. Well, that's one of the advantages of having a relatively small house, is that you can't accrue too much junk.
Uh-huh.
And we've made the actually parking the cars in the garage a priority to make sure we can't accumulate more.
I've never seen a car parked in my garage. Never.
You're that guy. You pull out random boxes, and you got leather helmets over there, and your childhood toys.
Well, I've never, for myself, had a house with a garage. But my parents, I've never, ever seen a car parked in our garage before.
See, my parents' house, you park in the garage, it's no problem. Dad was always place for everything and everything in its place. Well, he didn't meet my husband, who hasn't found a tool that he doesn't like, and if one is good, 6 are better. So.
Nice.
Yeah, that's how ours is. Like, back wall is all tools and whatnot. The one garage door is all basically bikes, because we've got 5 people, 5 bikes, even though we never ride them.
Wow.
And they do have a golf cart, though. The golf cart takes up one of the doors, half of one of the doors.
Yeah, we have a 53 Dodge is truck that is in our garage right now. I can't park in the garage, but the Precious vehicle can park in the garage. So I know where I am in order.
What percentage of garage doors have cars, would you say?
Less than half.
You think less than half?
I think less than half.
I think you're
probably. And I also, I think that as houses are built, they build garages smaller and smaller. Like
sure.
the depth, when we built
Crazy.
ours, we built it
Big.
purposely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm totally spoiled from that. Like just the fact that I'm sitting in my garage right now and you can't even see a car.
Yeah.
Garages, you can do that.
I do know that, I don't know. The big thing in our neighborhood was there were plenty of Redskins fans that had season tickets, but when there were away games, there was like a group of people that would always watch in the garage. So they would empty the garage, set up a TV in the garage, and you could hang out in the garage and driveway, and that was fun. And we never did it. We did it in our living room when we hosted because our garage was just always so full, and there was never a car in it. There was still just happened to be so much stuff, whether it's just balls, soccer balls, cleats. We'd always take our cleats off and just leave them at the garage door and go inside. Like it was just always so much stuff there.
I want everybody in my house to leave for about 5 days, and I'm going to order a dumpster, and I'll get the garage organized. That won't be a problem.
Yeah. Sorry about going in and out. Looks like I'm having internet issues. Alan, the answer here is none. We struggle enough getting those kids to bed as it is. The night games on a school night do not happen for 8, 6, and 1 at my house.
Yeah.
So it's always the get that part over with, and then I can check it out or get into it. Nice work, Raphael.
Impressive.
Nice.
That will be my goal if I have a garage one day, is to park my car in it. I'll always want it to be clean enough to try and do that, but will it happen? I don't know.
I'd say the odds are against you.
I also don't really care about my car getting dirty. Like, is that why people do it? To keep their car clean?
Some do.
And just not to have it sitting out.
Yeah, to me, it's more of a longevity thing as opposed to a cleanliness thing. Like make the thing last a little longer.
And it's nice, if you get in your car in the morning, early morning, might be a safety thing, or if it's not raining, or bringing in groceries.
Yeah, I mean, I would say snow would be great, but at the same time, like, you'd have to shovel the driveway anyway.
And around here, not much of a concern.
Yeah, no.
So maybe too, with the way that the quarantine situations have been and the virus and people working from home, maybe there's less to do going into this football season than there has ever been around the house because you have more time.
Yeah,
or you spent more time.
I definitely wanted to knock out another show before football season started, but it didn't happen. I accidentally started rewatching all the Marvel movies, which was a bad move.
All right, head back in.
Let's do number 3 straight in here, Tim, please.
Okay. Great.
Field that may not be as productive as those guys, just because we think there's only one back that's supposed to be out there. We need to make sure that we format our offense to where as many of those guys, right, as long as it's allowing us on the field, they're on the field and not standing over there on the sideline.
Offensive coordinator for the Gamecocks, Marcus Satterfield, speaking yesterday, talking about his Gamecock running backs. Just before the break, you heard him talking about he doesn't want running back by committee. So kind of two opposing ideas almost right there. It'll be the ability to mesh those two ideas, I think, to get as many productive players on the field as possible, guys alongside Kevin Harris, assuming he's healthy and ready to go for game number 1 Juju McDowell's been talked a lot about, the freshman running back, the returning freshman, second-year freshman running back, and Marshawn Lloyd, who tore his ACL last year, never got on the field, was all the talk of the preseason going in to preseason practice last year. You got those guys combined with a guy like Quandre White, who the coaches just raved about all spring long. There are only so many carries to go around. There are only so many plays and so many spots. And how Marcus Satterfield organizes formats like he talked about the Gamecock offense this year, along with obviously who's going to be taking those snaps for game number one and orchestrating the offense. Really intriguing at this point, 9 days away from opening kickoff, Patrick.
Didn't we kind of go through this last year with Deshaun Fenwick? Like, wasn't there Bill would remember this more because he remembers every game better. But weren't there games, or at least one game in particular, I don't know why, I can't remember which one it is, where it seemed like Deshaun Fenwick was the best option. Every time he touched the ball, he was making something great happen with it. Like, really dynamic and kind of a different burst that it didn't seem like any of the other running backs really had. And then he ends up transferring away. Bill mentioned that A.J. Turner was really dynamic, and it seemed like every time he was on the field, something good was happening for South Carolina, and he ends up getting switched to cornerback. Like, I feel like we've heard this a lot and seen this a lot, not just at South Carolina, but just there seems to always be a dynamic running back that just, for whatever reason, there's just not enough carries to go around. You've got a workhorse that you can't afford to have off the field, and he just gets kind of left behind, and that's just the way it goes.
It's a difficult balancing act for an offensive coordinator. Let's be very clear about that. Certainly not unique to South Carolina football. And if you are a Power 5 program that doesn't have this problem, you're in big trouble. I was going back to look at the box score of just last year's season opener. Kevin Harris got 13 carries. Quandre White had the second most carries with 7. Deshaun Fenwick right behind him with 6. I know Fenwick was used a lot in the passing game, so I'm seeing he was the tied for the second leading receiver for the Gamecocks in the season opener with 4 catches, 45 yards, and Harris and White with a catch each. So just some numbers to throw out there. So I guess that would be combined. Deshaun Fenwick in the season opener last year, 78 yards running and receiving, while Kevin Harris had 9 yards plus 55, which was 64. So he had more yardage from the line of scrimmage to start the season last year. And yeah, it definitely wasn't what it became for Gamecock football this time after even game number 1 last year, where you didn't know that Kevin Harris was the guy. And you weren't even hearing that from the coaching staff, right? You're hearing the guy going with the hot hand, and you got a couple of good running backs in the whole deal. And now you got Deshaun Fenwick over at Oregon State after transferring, and you got Kevin White coming back as the first 1,000-yard rusher in Gamecock football in 8 years, and doing it in a 10-game all-SEC schedule, but also doing it now with an injury and a recent back procedure. It was interesting to hear Marcus Satterfield talk about that. Would like to let you hear what he had to say about Kevin Harris specifically yesterday.
How'd Kevin Harris look today?
Looked good. Got some individual time with him, some backfield, some run timing with the quarterbacks, and I didn't even realize that he was in there. And we ran a rep. I was like, I had to double take and see him. So he looks good, and he's got a big old smile on his face, and you can tell that he's ready to roll. He's just waiting for somebody to, cut the chain loose and go.
Encouraging words from Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator for Gamecock football, about the star running back in Kevin Harris, and then also speaking very highly of Juju McDowell, the freshman running back for sure. And again, how do you get all these guys on the field? How do you get one workhorse running back going and getting in the rhythm of the game? Because that was maybe the most interesting comment to me, and wanted to let you hear about it before we discuss this more, is the philosophy of getting guys carries, not necessarily getting multiple guys carries.
I don't want to have a running back by committee when I have a really good running back that can be 150, 175-yard rusher, and he rushes for 75 because we're going by committee, and he gets 3 possessions in the first half. So compete and get out there.
That's the tough part for me, Patrick, is to say that publicly and then try to back it up, or having to back it up, and also having to keep guys happy in that room where everybody wants the football. If you're a skill position guy, in the game of football, and yet that's been the brilliance of the Nick Saban program, right? To get those Alabama 5-star recruits to buy into the idea that you just put in your time, you will have your chance to shine, especially those running backs who we've been through on the program already, the ridiculous list that they've had and had guys waiting their turns and then be able to produce and get drafted highly and go on to produce in the NFL.
Well, at Alabama, I think it's almost worked to their favor because they're saying, you're going to the NFL, so why don't you just wait till your senior year or your junior year and then you just be the workhorse for 1 year instead of go to a place where you can play as a freshman. Like the amount of carries that Tank Bigsby is going to have at Auburn versus whatever running back is a freshman at Alabama right now, like it's going to be quadruple what this kid's going to have, and that might hurt you when it's comes time for draft season and scouts look at you and say, well, this kid's got 1,000 carries under his belt. This kid's only got 250 or something like that. So it's worked for Alabama, but I was just thinking, like, we've been talking about Kevin Harris and Marshawn Lloyd as like the thunder and lightning type of deal. Mm-hmm. Have there been any super successful like three-headed monsters or got running back rooms that were really dominant but were actually using more than 3 or 4 guys? I can't necessarily think of it.
I go to Georgia, but it was more of a 2-person deal several times and right. Obviously in several different ways, but they seemingly always have a bunch of backs that are very productive and have been able to hold on to them. I think
you're talking Michelle and Chuck, right?
Yeah, and then I'm
because when Gurley was ahead of them, he was really the workhorse,
and
right?
Was it Gurley and Marshall at the same time there for a little bit, or
Keith Marshall? Yeah.
And then there was the injury to Marshall and the whole deal. It's always tricky, but some programs do it better than others. And I think the Gamecock football program, especially knowing that Kevin Harris was the first 1,000-yard plus running back in 8 years since Mike Davis did it before him, has struggled with it. It has been a struggle, and we've heard in the last several years, go with a guy with a hot hand. We got several different guys, and to me, I appreciate Marcus Satterfield coming out and saying the opposite of that. No, I don't want to do that. I want to have a guy that can get to 150 or 175 because I think when I hear a coach say that, when you look at stats in college football, if you got a guy doing that, you're going to win the football game more often than not. And maybe that's the ultimate goal. Now, being able to do that, talking about it in August is one thing. Being able to do it during the fall and have success doing it is a completely other thing, especially when you have your proven guy who has yet to go 100% in practice at this point. But hearing Marcus Satterfield talk about Kevin Harris specifically there seemed about as optimistic as you could get. Now we'll see in 9 days from now exactly how it starts in 2021 for the Gamecocks. And even remembering what happened last year in that season opener, how it started, certainly not exactly how it ended up becoming for Carolina as an offensive identity thing, Patrick. I think that's what most of us are the most intrigued about. Throw former Gamecock legend Sterling Sharp at the top of that list as well, having asked Shane Beamer at his media golf outing the first question about what's going to be the identity of the offense. I think the role these running backs play will probably define it more than anything else, even more than this quarterback question that we had and who's going to play in the whole deal. To me, it's right. How you use these guys, especially how they've been talked about here in preseason practice.
Yeah, and I think Thomas did answer my question, the 3 running back room with Felix Jones, Darren McFadden, and Peyton Hillis. I mean, I'm seeing that they, in their last 2 years together, had 7,500 yards from scrimmage combined and 59 total touchdowns. So, I mean, I guess there is a way to keep 3 guys going at the same time. And if you could get anything close to that from South Carolina's 3 running backs, I guess that would be magnificent. But, I mean, again, you've also got Zaquandre White there. And, I mean, we didn't see a ton of him, but didn't we come on the radio and say we were pretty impressed by what Rashad Amos did in limited action?
No doubt. We got another guy in that room for sure. Bill, what do you think we see in game number 1, especially knowing it's Eastern Illinois and knowing that your bread and butter going into that game, especially with the question mark right now at quarterback, is being able to run the football? Who do you foresee getting the bulk of the carries, and how do you see it looking with that running back rotation and the offense?
I think it's a good question because, and I know I've said it multiple times, and I know I've joked about it, and I know I sound a little bit like a broken record, but we don't know about the coaching staff and how they're going to coach. Steve Spurrier would go out, and I remember Perry Orr telling us Steve Spurrier basically would go out, and if they went to play Central Florida or Vanderbilt or whoever they played, North Carolina State in their opening game, Steve Spurrier didn't care. He's going to basically throw just about everything he had at you, right? Like this is us. This is who we are. We're better than you. And by that I mean whoever they played in the second or the third game wasn't real concerned about hiding anything. I feel like Will Muschamp was kind of the exact opposite. I'm trying to think Will Muschamp's openers over the last few years. North Carolina,
Tennessee last year.
Can you go back? NC State and not Raleigh and Charlotte 3. Vanderbilt was the 4th, and Coastal Carolina was his 5. So 4 of those were actually pretty good opponents. I just say that because I think a lot of the questions you ask, what is Shane Beamer, Marcus Satterfield, Clayton White's philosophy on how they want to handle what is basically a preseason game? Look, again, I wouldn't be saying that if maybe this was even an Akron or if they were playing Troy in the opener. Definitely if they were playing East Carolina. But Eastern Illinois is probably on paper one of the worst opponents I've seen South Carolina play in 10 years. Charleston Southern is probably the only other one I can put up there with it. So I only say that because when you guys talk about game 1 versus 11 other games, I don't really know what to expect in game 1. I think it's very vanilla. I think that the passing game will be limited. I think you just go on obviously maybe you try to work on some things, but I think it's going to be a very vanilla type game plan where it's basically a lot of handoffs. You got 4 running backs. Patrick just said something I completely agree with that we talked about before. Juju McDowell, we were talking about like Rashad Amos being like, oh, that guy seems pretty good, right? Like Rashad Amos seems like a guy who's got some potential there to be running back number 3. Actually, we were saying that before the spring. After the spring game, we were like, oh, Amos and Zaquandre White. Wow, okay. Now you got 4 guys you kind of like, and now we're talking about Juju McDowell more today. I just see it being more
at
like
this point. I guarantee if Will Muschamp was the coach, Zaquandre White would be playing defense.
You're probably right. Safety, yeah.
Guaranteed.
Safety. So I just it's part of an interesting element to this coaching staff, and it is why I think that South Carolina people get so confused when you're like, oh, South Carolina's a little bit more talented than people give them credit for. Well, I'm not saying South Carolina's talented enough to win 8 games. I'm not real sure if they're talented enough to win 7 games. I think the over-under from Vegas is set because there's zero clue what this coaching staff will do. I know that I've joked about it. I've joked about, I don't even know what Shane Beamer's going to wear. Does he wear a visor? Does he wear a hat? Khakis? Is he a collared shirt kind of guy? Is he a T-shirt? I've joked about it, but the truth is there's not many people outside of that building down there that can say, yes, this is what I can count on seeing from Marcus Satterfield in game 1. How does Shane Beamer manage a game? What's it like when he's got to make a decision on 4th and 3 from, the 50-yard line, go for it or punt? We know what the previous it's funny because Tim, you would agree with me. Patrick, you watched South Carolina. You weren't here during the Spurrier era, but Tim, South Carolina fans really couldn't have gone from a more 180 from Steve Spurrier, who would risk everything. How many times did he go for it in that Auburn game with Dylan Thompson on 4th down?
Every time.
Yeah, to Will Muschamp, who was like, oh, is that 4th and a yard from our 30? Punt it, or 57-yard field goal. Try the 57-yarder. You get Parker White out there. What is Shane Beamer's philosophy on so many things that are in-game decisions? And we don't know. We have zero clue at all. And I do think that's part of the reason you see the over-under on win total set so low, and why people actually give more credit to Tennessee, even though I think Tennessee has bigger issues than South Carolina. Because at least, say what you want about Josh Heupel, and you can say, well, he lost more games. Every year there were more losses piling up, and he wasn't running that program. But Josh Heupel's got a resume where we can look back and say, oh, I see what he did in this situation. I see how he managed the game. You can't say that for Shane Beamer.
Or Marcus Satterfield. And to me, establishing the offensive identity, I feel like Clayton White being a defensive coordinator on the rise at Western Kentucky and coming in with a 4-2-5 very much has an identity as a defensive coordinator and going to impose that on this year's team. on the other side of the ball, I think that might be the biggest storyline of 2021. Can Marcus Satterfield help Gamecock football establish an offensive identity? Because they were never able to do it under Will Muschamp. Never. I mean, you could argue an identity overall. Never able to do that. Steve Spurrier's identity became kind of the opposite of what he was known for coming in. It was more run the football and play defense to win games as opposed to throwing it all over the yard. But I think you're only able to establish an identity when you're able to win football games as well. And coming in with the philosophy to make adjustments and to tailor your stuff to your personnel, well, those are the right answers. But now the tough part becomes about getting on the field and being able to impose what you want to do on your opponent. And if that doesn't work, then figuring out an adjustment that works, not an adjustment that doesn't work or just to adjust sake. And then you're doing what I think we felt the Gamecock offense did way too much in the last several years, letting the defense dictate what you're going to do on an RPO. And when you don't have success with that, then your offensive identity is still very much a question mark or just one that doesn't exist. 803-404-6100, the number in the program. Love to have you on the Love Chevy phone lines or the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. It's that same number either way. We're also up and rolling on the video stream sponsored by Buford Lending, YouTube, Facebook Live, as well as Twitter. The station handles at 1075 The Game. You're listening to the Early Game.
Dan Patrick. Weekday.
Yep, that kind of week as we just count down the days right now to the start of college football season. That means you need to go ahead and start getting those good nights of sleep piled up. So you will be excited. You'll be ready to go. You will be fired up next week, much the same way I already am for Nebraska and Illinois on Saturday. You can do the same. You just need to make the switch today to a Sleep Number bed. Discover the Sleep Number 360 smart bed now during the biggest sale of the year. All beds are on sale. Save 50% on a new limited edition smart bed plus special financing, subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See sleepnumber.com for details. Limited time only right now, though. So you need to visit a Sleep Number store soon. 2 to choose from. 1 in Irmo on Harbison Boulevard across from Buffalo Wild Wings. The other in Columbia, 2 Notch Road across from Sand Hills Mall. You can visit them on the web, sleepnumber.com. Again, discover the Sleep Number 360 smart bed now during the biggest sale of the year. All beds are on sale where you can save 50% on a new limited edition smart bed, and you can get some special financing. Again, check them out. 2 stores, 1 in Irmo, 1 in Columbia. Visit them on the web, sleepnumber.com. Make the switch to Sleep Number today and find out what a great night of sleep is truly like. All right, back with the silhouette. Back from the pickup. Rodney, personally, I hate taking phone calls. I would prefer not to take phone calls. Although we can take a phone call from Gamecock Larry, I guess, if you like phone calls. I would prefer to. The phone calls are just brutal. So my opinion is the less, the better on that. Text line, though, you can always text in, or we got, again, the live stream. People can offer their opinions there. We can choose to take it or not.
You think Tim would agree with that?
Huh?
Think Tim would agree with that?
I don't know. I think Tim does like taking phone calls more than I do.
Yeah, I think you're dissuading people from calling the show.
They can text.
We need to encourage callers.
No, people can text. Or they can join us on the live stream. Because then you get some interesting phone calls that I guess maybe is interesting to people. Y'all seen my reactions? Well, you can't see it now with the silhouette, but I think people have seen my reactions in the past. Yeah, they can still call, Hope.
The answer is yes.
People can call.
We take phone calls.
Oh, yeah, we do take phone calls. Yeah. I guess the answer to that question is yes, we do take phone calls.
Yes. Wait till Tim comes back. He's going to click on that and say, yeah, of course, Rodney. Tell him to call in.
No, I mean, yeah, you can call it. I just prefer not to. There's a difference. I like us discussing it and reading off of the. Well, they can call. People can call. Oh, really?
Twin Peaks.
Geico, for your boat. See how you could save at geico.com today.
Hey, y'all. It's Jay Phillips talking integrated media with Grayson Griner, the former Carolina catcher and now with the Detroit Tigers. But home is still.
You can post a comment. We can get to it. You can interact with other people.
Bill just told people not to call in.
I did not say don't call in. I said I prefer not to take phone calls. There's a total difference. You can call in.
Also, he doesn't like callers.
Yeah, have you seen my facial expressions with some of the phone calls?
No, I haven't seen your facial expression in 6 months.
Is it? No, it's less than that.
No, it's been like a month since you changed.
And I'm with Wit. The live stream, because then you got people interacting over here. They're talking about.
We want everybody on the live stream, but if they want to call, they can call too.
What? I didn't say they couldn't call.
You just told them that you won't like it if they do.
No, I said I don't like some of the phone calls we've gotten, but that's also why we have the hot take hotline.
So only call if you're going to have a good call.
Only call if you're going to have a good call. I agree.
See, you got to learn to have fun with them, Bill. You got to learn. It's not a contest.
And then you tell me I get sensitive.
Fan intelligence.
You do get sensitive.
Okay. Well, then you can't say you have fun with them and you get sensitive.
Have fun with them instead of getting sensitive.
I do have fun with them. I ask them questions to explain their point. You guys are like, don't encourage them. I ask questions to explain the really bad points.
That's not having fun. That's making fun of them.
Yes, they deserve to be made fun of. If you call in with a bad take, you deserve to be made fun of.
Oh, I agree.
Yes, technically the radio show is not a democracy. It's our show. No, people are welcome to call.
We should make it a democracy. Like Jen say, hey, we've got this caller, and then we all just vote. Do we take him?
That does sound like a summertime show.
Yeah.
We just put up a poll every time somebody calls in on Twitter.
Yeah, just full open lines. Talk about anything you want.
Call.
What did Logan ask us yesterday? What's your favorite wintertime activity? We just have full open lines. Ask any question you want, and then Jen says, "Hey, Logan's on the line. He wants to ask about your favorite winter activities," and then we just vote. I say no to this topic. And then it's treason, or what's it called? It's like heresy to vote against Gamecock Larry.
Right.
Patrick, did you see that text, or not text, that tweet that I put out? Maybe, I don't know, probably last week about emojis. It was from Wall Street Journal and about
I think so.
Basically millennials using emojis different.
Let's see. Is it a retweet of something?
Well, I just know I tagged it. I
see.
Pasted it. Jimmy, we have dialogue right now. We're having dialogue. This is exactly why I like this. And the text line, dialogue.
Yeah, I agree with this.
I enjoy it. It's just when it becomes ridiculous, right? That's where there's the line. Especially around here lately, when things haven't gone well, and everything is just, oh, fire the coach. Those guys are idiots. That's where it crosses the line for me. It looks like Jen's got somebody. Huh? Do they not know that we do a radio show, Jen?
That's the other part. Patrick, how do you feel about calls that come in where they just want to talk to you?
Oh, there's literally nothing worse than just calling in to talk to the screener. It's infuriating.
Nothing but calls the last 30 minutes of this program. And just address all of your calls to Bill. Alan, good point on the YouTube live stream. Fans can call in, but if it's a bad phone call, Jen will lock you. High probability of that, especially now that tournament tomorrow out of Charlotte. Feel free to give them a call, by the way. I would suggest you do that if you're looking for a spot, because I know there are very few.
There are none.
All sold out, Bill? You got
that? Just got the man. My partner, Rock Lucas, says Tourney is full. We are at full capacity tomorrow, although Rock should know I've got an injured right knee. I really do. I do. It's not completely swollen, but yeah, Rock. Benji Getsy, Rock Lucas, Daniel Lucas. I'm just really going to be there to hang out. Is the way it could be. I'll swing the cloak. I can bend it a little bit now today. Rock had a knee surgery too much. Maybe I'll ride with him and he can share some tips on how to get healthy. I look forward to that.
Chad's got a good philosophy. I think there needs to be a good suggestion. There needs to be a caller star system.
There's going to be a lot of 1 stars.
Good idea.
There's going to be a lot of 1 stars. Star system?
We need to see evidence of that, Jen. I need to see the chart. We need to get this on the whiteboard.
You won't want to see it.
Yeah, if you get put in the book is.
The 0 stars are people that call me just to talk off the air and ask me a question that could be Googled in 5 seconds. Those are 0 stars.
Got one of those. 803-404-6100 if you would like to. If you are daring this morning and want to try the Love Chevy phone lines, you can also text us there on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line. That's what Bill would prefer. I think he's expressing this opinion on the live video stream, where you can also engage with us on the live video chat. One other option for you is the Hot Take Hotline, 803-978-6654. There for you 24/7 whenever you need it. Sponsored by Twin Peaks for the men who never settle. Go see him down in the Vista at 600 Gervais Street. Back to the football conversation. Brad says, if Marcus Satterfield is successful at South Carolina, his stock will rise exponentially. I don't think there's any doubt about that, because let's try to zoom out real quick here. How do you feel like others around the SEC and the country are viewing the situation that Shane Beamer, Marcus Satterfield, Clayton White, and company inherit? Because, Bill, I think I see it a lot like where Lou Holtz came in back in the day. It's not a 1-10 season, but 2-8 is not far behind. And having been 4-8 the year before then, this is not quite the basement where I've seen South Carolina and its program be in the last 20-plus years, but it's pretty close. And I think the fact that you don't have a name brand coach taking over at South Carolina for the first time in those 20-plus years, 25 years, I guess, maybe more than that when Brad Scott took over. I think it is much easier to be irrelevant at South Carolina right now than it has been in a long, long time. When you had even with Will Muschamp's failure at Florida, it was a pretty public deal, right? And Muschamp was a name brand. Steve Spurrier, obviously. Lou Holtz, clearly national championship guys. Shane Beamer's not that guy. Frank Beamer helps, but being a 21-year assistant in college football and now taking over, Shane Beamer's certainly a name in the state of South Carolina, the state of Virginia. Outside of that in college football, I think it's very easily to ignore the South Carolina situation as opposed to have a polarizing thought one way or the other. That's my opinion. Bill, what about you?
You said it's tough to have a polarizing thought about Shane Beamer right now?
No, I think South Carolina is very much irrelevant in the national and even the SEC landscape out there in football going into the 2021 season.
Yeah, I mean, by and large, they always have been. Lou Holtz certainly brought an interesting level of attention. Steve Spurrier, I was going back. I don't know if you guys saw, somebody reposted it the other day. The Kirk Herbstreit and Mike Tirico, the night that Steve Spurrier opened the Central Florida game, they posted the video of everything going on. It was like the opening montage, and it had Tirico and Herbstreit kind of talking about the game. So certainly there was some excitement there and some national level attention. I think it's interesting. I think that and Travis hits it up and Tim a week ago, at about this time, we just heard a national media member who really wants Shane Beamer to succeed, right? It was a week ago. We learned a lot about nut dust from our
That
good
was
buddy.
Friday morning, sir. Not quite a week ago.
He is national media though, but
last
he
Thursday.
is.
Last Thursday we were at Williams-Brice Stadium.
That's true. It was a week ago this time where we had just, I think,
Literally what I just said.
been
Experience.
exposed.
I would call him national media, but also not necessarily because he's very much a southeastern guy.
But he also grew up in Virginia playing against Shane Beamer in high school. So
Well, but you see, and I guess your point is correct. On a national scale, yes, completely irrelevant, and I'm not sure how many know. I think what you see is in the Southeast, where Shane Beamer spent the majority of his time. You see guys like Peter Burns who have been very vocal. You've seen Marty Smith. You've seen other media pundits around here who are like, yeah, you really want this guy to do well. But yeah, to your point, there is an irrelevance right now. But when you go 4-8 and 2-8, it doesn't really matter who your coach is. That's going to happen. Right. South Carolina. I don't know if there would be national relevance if Jamie Chadwell, if Billy Napier.
No way.
Yeah, maybe Matt Campbell. Maybe Hugh Freeze.
Again, like kind of a Southern guy. See, I'm just thinking like for my friends that I talk to who are from the Northeast, casual college football fans, maybe they like Maryland or they'll watch big games. Their perception of South Carolina is, oh yeah, they were pretty good. I remember when they had Clowney, and maybe some people remember like Marcus Lattimore. Oh yeah, I remember when Clowney had that hit against Michigan. They were pretty good for a couple years. It's like it's not too different from, oh yeah, I remember when Baylor had RG3 and they were really good that one year. Like that's kind of how people that are casual college football fans outside of this region look at South Carolina.
I asked that question simply because of Brad's comment there, and I think it's a relatively obvious point from Marcus Satterfield's standpoint as an offensive coordinator right now, unproven and kind of a guy under the radar on the hire, coming as the assistant offensive line coach from the Carolina Panthers, being attached to Joe Brady in a certain way. I think the ceiling for a lot of these assistant coaches and Shane Beamer as well is really high because you take over for Steve Spurrier, and it's that situation where you never want to be the guy who replaces the guy. Will Muschamp was destined to fail in a lot of ways, unless he was going to take South Carolina's football program to the football program to higher heights than 3 consecutive top 10 finishes and an SEC East Division championship. He wasn't going to compare to the previous guy. Shane Beamer's in a different place to where unless it just doesn't really work out well, he's going to compare favorably to the last guy. I think Marcus Satterfield's in a very similar position as well as an offensive coordinator. The previous two aren't highly thought of. And if he can get it rolling at all, then the reputation amongst the coaching world, if Clayton White can get it rolling at all, because maybe he's in the most interesting spot, though. He's taking over for a guy with the defensive reputation of Will Muschamp. And Travaris Robinson had a tremendous reputation coming in to South Carolina, and it didn't work out well. Even though they produced some guys that have gone on to the NFL, obviously J.C. Horn and the last couple of years as first-round draft picks as a team, and from a wins and losses standpoint, where it got to was bad, as we all know, and now it's Shane Beamer's job to turn that around. And I think he gets a leash that might be a little bit longer than someone who would have come with a different reputation, J.B. Chadwell or Hugh Freeze or whoever Billy Napier was being discussed, just because of the goodwill he has built up previously when he was here as an assistant with Spurrier, and also how he has spoken about the program and the image change. I think that it's undergone the last couple of months. You seem curious over there, Patrick.
Doesn't it help him that, because Will Muschamp, the bad defense was held against him even more because the whole thing was, you're a defensive genius. How is your defense so bad? Nobody has like an opinion on what Shane Beamer is as a coach. If the special teams is terrible, are people going to hold it against him more? Like, right. Is that what we're going to do here? Because they do have one of the best special team coaches in the country, and he's grew up on Beamer ball. Like, are we going to hold it against him if the offense isn't productive? Because I feel like we don't expect it to be, at least in year one. But he came from Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, maybe, if not the best, one of the best offensive minds in college football right now. So I feel like he doesn't have that one thing that it's like, well, we know this is going to be good under Shane Beamer. So if it's not, that's a clear indication of his failures or success.
Yeah, I would say at this point, the only thing that would be held against him is if you get a bunch of players who don't get playing time and then transfer out, or there's just finger pointing and the culture kind of breaks down before our eyes, because that's what he seemingly based his foundation on, right? Is that the program is more than just football, and it's about, caring for the other players and taking maybe the whole human approach as opposed to just X's and O's and the whole thing. But that's got to come with wins and success and the whole thing for a fan base to truly embrace Shane Beamer. But it is interesting, you're talking about it. What if the tight ends don't have a productive season, coming in as a tight ends coach and talking about him as much as maybe that's held against him a little bit. But besides that, I think you're right, Patrick, to a certain degree, not coming in with baggage. And that's what we're really talking about here. It's baggage.
Was it baggage with Will Muschamp?
It was baggage with Will Muschamp.
Yes.
Let's be very clear.
Yes.
It was expectation with Holtz and Spurrier.
Why was it?
Reputation.
Well, but in terms of just being a defensive genius, it wasn't baggage with Will Muschamp because he had just come off of a very successful defensive coordinator stint, and every time he was a defensive coordinator, he was very successful. Right?
What do you mean
He just come off of a failed head coaching tenure where it didn't go well.
The job at all
hadn't failed in a while.
What he did at Auburn was not really successful. If you go back and look at it, there was a lot of people saying that even that year the defense got chewed up a little bit. Will Muschamp
was not the reputation that they were a good defense and Will Muschamp made them better?
Not that year. No. Yeah.
Really? So what? Okay, I don't know.
The point is,
to get hired.
Well, whatever. I don't even want to go down that road. I wasn't here. I don't remember that well, but whatever.
The point, it goes back. There's a lot of people, and I was one of those people that looked at Florida, and did he have? I think it was a 15-17 record in the SEC. Tim, is that right? Without going back and looking, I think he was 28-21 overall at Florida.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people who said, "Hey, look, you can't do it at Florida with all the resources and the easy recruiting that you got there. How can you accomplish this at South Carolina?" And I talked to somebody the other day, and I'll throw this out there very quickly, that has had a chance to attend practice and watch what's going on out there. And I think this is interesting. And it's a high school coach here in the Midlands that has been at practices the last several years for Spurrier, for Muschamp, and now for Beamer. And I kind of said, well, what do you notice is like the biggest difference? And he said the biggest difference I see is there's more coaching taking place instead of yelling and screaming. And I thought back to a comment made in the spring that I think, Patrick, you and I might have hit on, or Tim, you and I, and it was made by Jasden Turrentine. I'm pretty sure who it was. It was an offensive lineman who was asked about Greg Atkins, and he said, yeah, when we make a mistake, he walks over and he corrects you. He doesn't scream at you to get out and for the next guy to get in. They work on correcting your mistakes. And I thought about that comment. So when you say there's more coaching going on, there's a lot more, hey, we got to fix our fundamentals. And there were some things I saw at the end, and Nick Saban said this a few weeks ago about the evolution of or evolving with college football and how the dinosaurs didn't evolve, and we see where they're at now. I don't know if Will Muschamp didn't just go on talent alone and say, hey, I've got great talent. Here's the X's and O's. Go out and follow the X's and O's. Patrick, I think you've still made the greatest point on Will Muschamp coming into press conference and going, well, the game plan was there. The game plan was there. The players didn't execute it, but our game plan was perfect. And Tim, to your point that you said, the Auburn game where he says, you won this game on Tuesday, you won this game on Wednesday, perfecting the game plan. It wasn't so much as developing players. And we've gone back and forth on that, where who was developed and who wasn't.
We are developing a plan right now to go to break, and we're going to have Darlington Raceway President Gary Tharp join us when we come back. Jen is going to revel in victory and be able to rub it in everyone's nose. It's mostly just
yeah.
Not really, because she's still losing. I mean,
oh, be quiet. But and from the Shepherd's Glass Traffic Center, Shepherd's Glass, true reflection.
Oh my gosh.
What's that, Larry's text, dude?
No, Jen's message saying the caller want to know how to get ESPN Plus. That would have made me so mad if I was screening that call. That is the most annoying thing to me oh. I have one friend that always puts it in our group messages. Hey, how do I do this or whatever? It's like, dude, Google it. Hey, did the Orioles win last night? I don't know, dude. Google it. Would have found out faster than waiting for me to respond.
I thought they did, though.
They did. And Patrick asked that question verbatim earlier on the
Exactly. As I was Googling it, though, I just said it out loud because I didn't like the awkward silence.
I mean, hey, the Cubs are.
But Jen, that's what I was talking about. Your messages that a caller wanted to get ESPN Plus.
Yeah.
He took the time to call you, and could have just gotten on his computer and typed in ESPN Plus.
Yeah, it.
Should have put him on air.
But he says he's not tech, real tech savvy. So then it's like.
Yeah, Google stuff.
But if you're not tech savvy,
probably not getting ESPN Plus to begin with.
Right.
I feel like this is the scene out of Dumb and Dumber where he's pick him up,
yeah.
Put him on air.
I mean, this is like it is like my grandparents.
Name reason, just name reason. It's like no, I don't want to go on air. Be like name reason.
Right. And that is where a lot of them start. It's like I don't want to go on the air, but just tell the guys.
You should be like text line. You've got the ability to text.
That's true. But then they wouldn't have the pleasure of knowing how fantastic I am.
It's true.
And I think that's important.
If it's like a older person, like my grandparents would not know how to get ESPN Plus. Right. But also they can't call and just have it talked through. It's just I'd just be like, all right, you need to have someone come do it for you.
But that's another generational difference. That's your grandparents, but it's our parents.
Yeah. So if they needed something, you just have to go do it for them.
Right. So you're kind of the first generation that I know of anyway, that you can trust your parents to figure it out.
Yeah, I can usually talk them through it, but it does take a push. Like last Christmas, I hope they still use it. I got my parents a Roku because I was sick and tired of my dad scrolling through and playing the same 5 movies on TNT, HBO, FX, or whatever. I was like, dude, just watch something that will entertain you instead of just mindlessly rewatching the same 5 movies every day of your life, please.
York, 16 days till that happens. We'll get you the radio station.
So Patrick, to your point, yesterday I guess Spectrum television went up just a tad or something, and my grandmother was talking about it, and she's like, "Yeah, Bill, what do you use?" And I was like, I use YouTube television. She's like, "Oh, you think I should use that?" I was like, "Look, it only went up $10. Me trying to teach you to use YouTube television in the 80s isn't going to work. Let's just pay the extra $10 a month, stick with what you know, and let's just go with that, all right? Like, you got all the channels trying to explain to you YouTube television and the internet, and if the internet's down for a minute, like, just
stick with the platform you know and understand right now.
It's right.
just learning a whole new TV layout, new channels, new everything. Be terrible.
Yeah,
I'll give you Otto Coons.
He's the guy, quarterback position.
Actually, I'll give you the quarterback depth chart. I'll tell you right now.
Alan, you just got to go to the ECU website. They got the game notes up. See?
EIU.
How dare you?
What'd I say?
Illinois. And I'm pretty sure I heard Shane Beamer go with the Illinois the other day. Yeah, the S.
Don't like that at all.
I'm with you. And he's still saying Gauthier, last I heard.
What? Yeah, did y'all see the person like yelling at me on Twitter about that?
Yeah, I didn't see that, but we discussed that. We've been saying it wrong on Monday.
Well, I was like, and because the guy on Twitter, I was like, well, look, this is what the coach says. And he's like, don't go with the coach says, go with what the reporter says. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Carrie's ready. Reggie's already made his pick.
Does he make one or does he make a couple?
When did he start picking first?
Well, for this one, yeah, none of us would have picked him. He's picked Stenhouse.
That was gonna be my pick.
Yeah,
No, I'm just
okay. He didn't even know there was a Stenhouse.
Martin Stenhouse is pretty good.
I thought so. Yep, I agree. When he's not in the middle of a wreck.
All right. Here we go.
I think that's why he picked, though. He's like, eh.
Oh, boy.
All right, guys are up.
Running into the final segment of the show, Jen Jensen victorious last week in our NASCAR picks contest with Ryan Blaney, the winner at Michigan. Jen, please feel free. Take all the time you need.
You know what? I'm just not that kind of person. I don't have to revel in my success.
I don't have to bring other people down.
That's what Bill feels like he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just not how I roll.
You know what? That's called inexperience of winning. And based on the previous results, I totally understand where you're coming from. When you aren't an experienced winner, you don't know how to enjoy it.
Really? I just thought it was being polite. But okay, whatever.
I think that was winner's passive aggressiveness is what that was from Jen. But she earned it. She got the win last week and has, I think, narrowed the gap. Well, definitely narrowed the gap. Actually made it a contest, Jen. Jen can take over first place this week, Bill.
With a win.
You're up by 8 points in our picks contest. You get 10 points for a win. Gary Tharp and Reggie Anderson are also involved. And speaking of Gary Tharp, Darlington Raceway president, joining us on the Love Chevy phone lines right now. Gary, what'd you make of what you saw at Michigan, and how you doing here 9 days away? I guess you guys are maybe a little less than that for the big Darlington Labor Day weekend.
Oh, wow. Well, I tell you, I think Jen shows a lot of class on how she wins, and I'll just leave it at that, okay?
Thanks,
yeah, I thought Michigan was – I thought it was one of the better Michigan races that I had seen in quite some time. It was a lot of great restarts there at the end, and Ryan Blaney had the best of them. And, I thought it was an interesting race. I thought that, Blaney, like I said, got the best restart there at the end, and he held off William Byron, to get his victory. So big win for Ryan. He had already secured a spot in the playoffs, but this just gives him more bonus points heading into the reset of the points after this weekend at Daytona. And, I think it certainly, gives him a shot in the arm as he heads towards race one of the playoffs here at Darlington.
And let's go to Daytona before we get to Darlington there. Go ahead and give us your pick for Daytona this weekend. Reggie Anderson over at WLTX has already weighed in with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I'm told. Yeah. I'm guessing he didn't steal your pick there, Kerry.
No, I mean, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. would be a kind of a dark horse for sure. And I'm going to kind of swing for the fences here too. I mean, it's getting late in the game. I mean, we're getting ready to start playoffs, and I got to get back into the game. So I'm going to go with Austin Dillon. He's competing for that final playoff spot. And he's won at Daytona before. He's also gone up in the catch fence there before. So he'll probably either take the checkers or the wreckers. But I'm going with Austin Dillon to win Saturday night at Daytona.
Strong.
And Jen, what about you?
And I think I'm going to go with somebody who has had some successes there or runs very strong. I'm going to go with William Byron. He's kind of hot right now.
2 wins in a row could get Jen to the top of the NASCAR picks contest, where Bill Gunter has resided, I think, pretty much all season long. Bill, where are you going here?
2 years ago when I started this run, it was at Daytona.
We don't have that much time.
It was at Daytona. It was with this driver who I really didn't know anything about.
So Denny Hamlin is his
because
pick.
I thought he was the favorite for that race, but it turns out he was the favorite for the 2018 race. I believe that's right. I might be even thinking back 2018. When you're in trouble, you go to your security spot. Give me the big favorite here. Give me my guy, my racer, Denny Hamlin. I'm going to my closer here to shut this thing down, to walk away as the victory. Give me my guy, Denny Hamlin. I got to go with my guy.
All right, speaking of
That took almost 45 seconds.
Go ahead and shut his mic down. Let's give Kerry the last few seconds
Denny
here
Hamlin.
of the program. Kerry, Darlington's getting that much closer. How you guys preparing, and you feeling good about it?
I think we're feeling really good. I think kind of everything's coming together. We do have a few days to get some last minute paint on the walls and on the aprons and spruce up that last little crepe myrtle and areas that we like to do some landscaping. So it's pretty much that type of mode that we're in right now, just kind of getting all the property tidied up, and it's looking really, really good. I've been out there every day for the past 2 weeks, but it looks great. It's going to be a heck of a weekend, and we look forward to having our fans back here next weekend at Darlington.
Yeah.
At Carey_Tharp, where you can follow him on Twitter. Finishing touches right now at the Lady in Black in the last few days before the big Labor Day weekend. Carey, thanks for joining us, and we'll be pulling for everyone but Denny Hamlin on the show to win in Darlington this week.
True story.
Sounds good. I appreciate it, fellas and girls. Thank you.
Carey
Talking to you, Bill.
DarlingtonRaceway.com, the website. You can find all the information about Darlington there. Bill, that was a good evil laugh you threw in at the end of that as well.
15.
You guys better be pulling against Denny Hamlin, because let me tell you, there's. I'll end up doing the show completely by myself if Denny Hamlin wins on Monday. You won't want to hear it.
See you at Charwood tomorrow.
WNK over Columbia. It's all sports, all the time. 107.5.
Yeah, I can promise you, I have a cough that's kind of working right now, so it might really fester by Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
Hamlin wins.
Don't worry, I'll come do the show from your driveway.
Will you? That'd be great.
I will be in your driveway.
All right, that's it for us. We'll see you guys tomorrow in Charwood. See if they let us in on time, or we need to break in like last time.
Yeah.